Chapter 2795. The land of creation definitely existed, but very few people knew how to enter it. Even Ancestor Chio didn't know where the entrance to the land of creation was, let alone the beast slave. The land of creation definitely existed, but very few people knew how to enter it. Even Ancestor Chio didn't know where the entrance to the land of creation was, let alone the beast slave. Hearing the beast slave's answer, Xiao Chun and Lin Yun couldn't help feeling disappointed, but there was nothing they could do. They could only sigh inwardly. But since the place of creation really existed, it was indeed good news for Xiao Chun and Lin Yun. At least they knew their next goal. As for how to find the entrance to the land of creation, that could only be discussed in the future. However, as long as they were diligent, they would definitely be able to find some clues. The current plan was to rush to the primordial world as soon as possible to guard against Ancestor Mu's attack. This wasn't the first time they had met Ancestor Mu. Previously, Ancestor Mu had personally come to the primordial world. However, at that time, Ancestor Mu didn't take any action. It was just a warning. However, this time, according to Ancestor Chio, Ancestor Mu obviously wouldn't give up so easily. Since the various primogenitors had decided to destroy Xiao Chen's alliance, Ancestor Mu would definitely take action this time. The most important problem now was how to escape from Ancestor Mu's attack. After witnessing Ancestor Chio's strength, Ancestor Mu was probably the same. He was boundlessly strong. It was hard to say if the beast slave alone could succeed. However, no matter what, Xiao Chun and Lin Yun had no possibility of escaping. After all, the alliance was everyone's foundation. They hurried to the primordial world. At the same time, in the primordial world, Mu Lingxian, Mo He, Ancestor He, Dongfang Yun, and several other world lords were also frowning. After learning that Ancestor Mu was about to attack, Xiao Chun had already contacted Mu Lingxian through the voice transmission talisman and told him about the matter so that he could be prepared as soon as possible. It was definitely too late to evacuate. Unless Mu Lingxian could rampage and abandon most of the martialists in the alliance, it would be possible to evacuate before Ancestor Mu's attack. But even so, where could they escape to? Without a foundation, they were like rats crossing the street. Therefore, they had no other choice but to resist Ancestor Mu's attack with all their might. However, the thought of facing a primogenitor made even Mu Lingxian and the others feel pressured. The strength of a primogenitor was too terrifying. Even with so many of them working together, they didn't have the slightest bit of confidence in defeating him. They should have been prepared for this situation, but when they actually faced the primogenitor, they realized that it wasn't easy to go against the primogenitor. The entire primordial world was already prepared for battle. Although it was probably only Patriarch Mu, everyone still looked as if they were about to face a great enemy. They didn't dare to relax in the slightest. The purpose of the alliance was to fight against the origin world. However, when they had to fight against the ancestor, they still couldn't calm down. However, the only good news was that Xiao Chun had the help of the beast slave. An ancient life form as a helper was the only good news. Time passed day by day. Xiao Chun and the others were about to arrive at the primordial world. However, before Xiao Chun and the others arrived, Patriarch Mu arrived first. Patriarch Mu's figure appeared directly in the primordial world through the spatial passage. He didn't intend to hide his whereabouts. Perhaps in Patriarch Mu's opinion, he didn't need to hide to deal with Mu Lingxian and the others. These people couldn't stop him at all. Mu Lingxian, Ancestor He, Mo, and the others, who had been waiting for a long time, also appeared one after another. There were as many as 10 world lords and even more experts who had appeared in front of Ancestor Mu. Patriarch Mu didn't change his expression in the slightest in the face of thousands of troops. On the contrary, Mu Lingxian and the others looked extremely solemn. Patriarch Mo, Patriarch He, if you disband the alliance, I can let bygones be bygones, Patriarch Mu said as he glanced at everyone. His voice was calm and indifferent. It was as if he didn't care about the others at all. Patriarch Mo braced himself and replied, Patriarch Mu, the new world isn't what everyone wants. If you cancel the establishment of the new world, we will naturally disband. Everyone was against the establishment of the new world. However, the origin world was stubborn, which was why the current situation was like this. However, Patriarch Mu said indifferently when he heard that. How can you criticize the origin world's decision? The establishment of the new world is the general trend. Patriarch Mo, your actions are going against the natural order. You will only bring about your own destruction. At this point, it was impossible for the origin world to cancel the establishment of the new world. Patriarch Mu wouldn't agree, and neither would the other primogenitors. No matter whether the new world could be accepted or not, it was the decision of the primogenitors of the origin world. Therefore, it couldn't be changed. Anyone who tried to stop them would be the enemy of the origin world. Patriarch Mu's answer was very firm. He didn't have any intention of backing down. There were only two outcomes for his appearance this time. First, Patriarch Mo, Mu Ling Xian, and the others would disband the alliance and admit the origin world's decision. Second, Patriarch Mu would personally kill everyone present. Either way, it was absolutely impossible for the origin world to back down. Patriarch Mu wouldn't agree to such a request. After hearing Patriarch Mu's firm answer, Patriarch Mo didn't say anything else. Disbanding the alliance, admitting the establishment of the new world, and even taking the initiative to ask Patriarch Mu and the others to erase their emotions and desires was unacceptable. Otherwise, they wouldn't have joined forces to form such an alliance. Since there was no way to reach an agreement, the only thing left was to fight. Although Patriarch Mo and the others had the advantage in numbers, it was still hard to say who would win if they fought Patriarch Mu. It could even be said that they had almost no chance of winning. Facing a primogenitor, they couldn't rely on numbers to win. No matter how many people they had, if they weren't strong enough, they were just a group of ants in Patriarch Mu's eyes. He could easily destroy them. There was no backing down in his eyes. Seeing this, Ancestor Mu revealed a cold smile and said, "Looks like you don't intend to submit. Fine, I can only do it myself. Although it's a little troublesome, I don't have any other choice." As soon as his voice sounded, a terrifying pressure soared into the sky from Ancestor Mu's body. This kind of pressure suppressed Mo, Mu Ling Xian, and the others, causing their expressions to change. Like a violent wave, it swept towards them from all directions. Even Mo, Mu Ling Xian, and the others, who were world overlords, felt their hearts tremble. Please collect, vote, recommend. In a chapter. Chapter 2796. Even Mu Ling Xian, Mo, and the others felt their hearts tremble in the face of Ancestor Mu's oppressive aura, let alone the people below. Many of the experts in the alliance were already pale. Even Mu Ling Xian, Mo, and the others felt their hearts tremble in the face of Ancestor Mu's oppressive aura, let alone the people below. Many of the experts in the alliance were already pale. This was why Mu Ling Xian and the others knew from the beginning that numbers were meaningless when facing a primogenitor like Ancestor Mu. Looking at the situation now, before the fight even began, everyone was already pale and sweating profusely. How could they fight like this? Perhaps many of them were already scared out of their wits. Only world lords like Mu Ling Xian and Mo, he had the ability to resist Ancestor Mu's oppressive aura. However, even if they could resist it, what could they do? After all, it was just an aura. When the fight really began, Mu Ling Xian and the others were still no match for Ancestor Mu. Gritting their teeth, Mu Ling Xian and the others were ready to attack at any time. Ancestor Mu smiled slightly. However, just as Ancestor Mu was about to attack, the three figures of the beast slave, Shao Chun, and Lin Yun suddenly rushed out of the spatial black hole. At the critical moment, Shao Chun and the others finally arrived. Lu Bingning, Qin Shu, and the others were arranged to stay outside the Hongmeng world by Shao Chun and the others. They did not enter the Hongmeng world, but Shao Chun, Lin Yun, and the beast slave rushed over and finally made it. Seeing Shao Chun and the others appear, Mu Ling Xian and the others were delighted because the beast slave was an ancient creature. With her around, the situation would definitely be much better. At least she could be the main force to restrain Ancestor Mu. When the time came, with the help of the World Lords, they would have a fighting chance. When Patriarch Mu saw Shao Chun and the other two appear, his face did not change at all. He did not feel strange at all. Instead, he revealed a faint smile and said, "It seems that Patriarch Xiao did not make a move." It was as though they had expected that Xiao Zhu wouldn't attack Shao Chun and the others. Shao Chun, Lin Yun, and the others didn't answer. They only stared coldly at Ancestor Mu. Xiao Zhu didn't agree with the idea of a new world. Ancestor Mu knew this from the beginning, but because most of the primogenitors agreed, Xiao Zhu was forced to agree. Therefore, when Ancestor Mu found out that Xiao Zhu was going to kill Shao Chun and the others, he guessed that Xiao Zhu wouldn't take action. Ancestor Mu wasn't angry that Shao Chun and the others had escaped from Xiao Zhu. They were all primogenitors. Although Xiao Zhu hadn't killed Shao Chun and the others, Ancestor Mu couldn't blame Xiao Zhu. After all, Xiao Zhu was a primogenitor of the Righteous Tao Alliance. Then, Ancestor Mu's gaze fell on the beast slave. He looked at the beast slave and said softly, "Beast slave, are you determined to go against the origin world? You should know that I don't want Xiao Zhu to do this. If you insist on doing this, I'll have to kill you even if I have to pay a price today." Although Ancestor Qiu didn't kill Beast Slave and the others, Ancestor Mu was different. Even though Beast Slave was an ancient being and it wouldn't be easy to kill her, Ancestor Mu had no choice but to kill her if she insisted on becoming enemies with the origin world. Even though he might have to pay a huge price, Ancestor Mu could still afford it. At most, he would lose a lot of vitality, but he could still kill the Beast Slave. The Beast Slave didn't think too much and replied coldly, "I don't want to be enemies with you old fellows, but who asked you to be so stubborn? If that's the case, then there's no room for discussion." Ancestor Mu smiled faintly when he heard that. Then, without any warning, his figure vanished from the spot. Then he slapped his palm at the Beast Slave and launched an attack. The Beast Slave's reaction wasn't slow in the face of Patriarch Mu's attack. Facing the giant palm that was descending from the sky, the Beast Slave reacted immediately and blasted out a punch. Rich blood gushed out of the Beast Slave's petite body and condensed into a fist. The fist and leg collided violently. However, it was obvious that the Beast Slave was at a disadvantage as soon as they came into contact. There was still a gap in strength between the ancient creatures and the primogenitor, but it wasn't the kind of gap that would crush the primogenitor. Even though the Beast Slave was suppressed, it didn't collapse immediately. It was still able to contend with the primogenitor. Shao Chun and Lin Yun were the first to react. After all, the two of them had come into contact with Ancestor Qiu before and knew the strength of the primogenitors. They also knew that it was indeed difficult for the Beast Slave to contend with a primogenitor alone. Therefore, after the Beast Slave and Ancestor Mu clashed, Shao Chun and Lin Yun immediately launched an attack. Moreover, their attacks were directed at Ancestor Mu. The Beast Slave restrained most of Ancestor Mu's energy, while the world lords like Shao Chun and Lin Yun looked for opportunities to attack. That was the only way to contend with Ancestor Mu at the moment. In the face of Shao Chun and Lin Yun's attacks, Ancestor Mu didn't neglect them. Although the two of them couldn't directly cause much damage to Ancestor Mu with their strength, Ancestor Mu didn't want to fail miserably and let his guard down. Therefore, when Shao Chun and Lin Yun attacked, Ancestor Mu still diverted a part of his attention and easily defended against their attacks. On the other side, the Beast Slave seized the opportunity and attacked with all his might, shattering Ancestor Mu's giant palm. The two sides instantly engaged in a great battle. Just as expected, apart from the Beast Slave, Shao Chun, Lin Yun, and the other world lords, the other warriors didn't even have the right to intervene unless they wanted to die. Even the world lords had to be careful when fighting with the ancestor. There was a risk of being killed if they weren't careful, let alone the warriors below. They couldn't even get close to Ancestor Mu. Many of them couldn't withstand Ancestor Mu's coercion alone. The Beast Slave seized the opportunity when Shao Chun and Lin Yun attracted Ancestor Mu's attention and directly shattered Ancestor Mu's attack. Then, It was the beast slave's turn to attack. He threw a punch at Ancestor Mu again and shouted coldly, "Old thing, do you really think you're invincible in the world?" Ancestor Mu's previous words obviously made the beast slave very unhappy. As an ancient life form, he seemed to be an existence that could be killed at any time in Ancestor Mu's eyes. How could the beast slave not be angry? What a joke. The beast slave had lived for so many years and had never been threatened like that. Even if the other party was the Ancestor Mu, the beast slave wanted to let him know that he wasn't someone who could be killed just like that. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. End of chapter. Chapter 2797. The beast slave took the initiative to attack Ancestor Mu, while Shao Chun, Lin Yun, Mo, and the rest attacked from the side. Even though they were world lords, Shao Chun and the rest were very clear-headed and didn't choose to clash head-on with Ancestor Mu. The beast slave took the initiative to attack Ancestor Mu, while Shao Chun, Lin Yun, Mo, and the rest attacked from the side. Even though they were world lords, Shao Chun and the rest were very clear-headed and didn't choose to clash head-on with Ancestor Mu. Everyone knew very well that they wouldn't be able to gain any advantage at all if they were to clash head-on with Ancestor Mu with their own strength. The best way was to coordinate with the beast slave and find an opportunity to attack. While facing the beast slave's ferocious attacks, he also had to divert a part of his attention to guard against Shao Chun and the rest's attacks. Ancestor Mu seemed to be struggling for a while. However, it would be a big mistake to think that he could suppress or even defeat Ancestor Mu with this alone. There wasn't the slightest hint of panic on his face, as if he wasn't surrounded at all. Facing the ferocious attacks of the beast slave, Ancestor Mu blocked them calmly. As for the attacks of Shao Chun and the rest, Ancestor Mu could easily resolve them. Although the battle seemed to be suppressing Ancestor Mu with Shao Chun and the rest, in fact, they didn't cause any substantial damage to Ancestor Mu. Ancestor Mu was still dealing with them with ease. In the blink of an eye, more than 100 moves were exchanged. The battle between Ancestor Mu and the beast slave could be said to be extremely dangerous. However, Ancestor Mu maintained the suppression of the beast slave throughout the fierce battle. Under such suppression, Ancestor Mu also successfully seized an opportunity to block the punch of the beast slave. Then, before the beast slave could react at all, Ancestor Mu slammed his palm out at lightning speed and hit the beast slave's chest hard. After being hit by Ancestor Mu's palm, the beast slave spat out a mouthful of blood and was instantly sent flying backward. Ancestor Mu didn't hold back at all. It was also because the beast slave was an ancient creature with a strong physical body that he didn't suffer too serious injuries. However, Ancestor Mu managed to gain some time to catch his breath after he repelled the beast slave. At the same time, Shao Chun and the others were in an extremely dangerous situation without the beast slave holding them back. After sending the beast slave flying, Ancestor Mu's gaze landed on Shao Chun and the others. He said indifferently, "Is it why I said you were unbearably ignorant and thought you could contend against the ancestor like that?" As soon as he finished speaking, the pressure on Ancestor Mu's body increased once again. For a time, Shao Chun and the others felt as if there was a huge mountain pressing down on them. Their movements became much slower. It was just a slight increase in pressure, but it was already enough to increase the pressure on Shao Chun and the others. Moreover, this was just the beginning. Using his own pressure to suppress Shao Chun and the others, Ancestor Mu took a step forward. His body instantly appeared in front of Mo Shi. He seemed to casually throw out a palm strike, but Mo Shi reacted instantly. He did not dare to be careless. Mo Shi had put up a sufficient defense. However, when Ancestor Mu's palm landed on Mo Shi's body, Mo Shi still felt a terrifying force that was difficult to resist. It instantly pounced on him and engulfed his entire body. His defense was broken in an instant, and Mo Shi's entire arm drooped down. Obviously, Mo Shi could not block the palm strike. His body was sent flying like a cannonball. Mo Shi was severely injured with a single palm strike, and he spat out several mouthfuls of blood. After sending Mo-Shi flying, Ancestor Mu did not stop. In a flash, he appeared in front of Ancestor He. It was also a seemingly simple palm strike, but Ancestor He realized that he had no chance of dodging it. It was as if he had been locked in place. Even if he fled to the ends of the earth, there was no way he could escape from Ancestor Mu's palm strike. Left with no choice, Ancestor He could only choose to defend with all his might like Mo-Shi. However, the result did not change at all. Ancestor He was also sent flying by Ancestor Mu's palm strike and was severely injured. In the blink of an eye, Ancestor Mu had already severely injured Mo-Shi and Ancestor He. As for the remaining world lords, Shao Chun, Lin Yun, Mu Lingxian, and a few other world lords, it was obvious that they would not be spared. First, it was Mu Lingxian. Ancestor Mu appeared in front of Mu Lingxian. Upon seeing this, Mu Lingxian immediately retreated, wanting to distance himself from Ancestor Mu. Childish. However, Ancestor Mu sneered in the face of Mu Lingxian's actions. Moreover, as Mu Lingxian moved, he realized that he could not shake off Ancestor Mu at all. He did not see Ancestor Mu move at all. However, as he retreated rapidly, the distance between him and Ancestor Mu did not change at all. It was as if no matter what he did, Ancestor Mu could keep up with him and maintain a certain distance from him. There was simply no way to shake off Ancestor Mu's attack. At that moment, Ancestor Mu gently extended his right palm. Upon seeing this, Mu Lingxian raised his eyebrows and put up a defense. However, he was still sent flying by Ancestor Mu's palm strike. This was the strength of a primogenitor. In front of Ancestor Mu, Shao Chun and the other world lords simply did not have the slightest ability to fight back. In an instant, they were severely injured by Ancestor Mu, one after another. This feeling made everyone feel very sullen. It was as if they knew what Ancestor Mu was going to do and had made a response in advance. However, the result was that there was no effect at all. It was the most direct suppression of power. Ancestor Mu did not care how Shao Chun and the others responded. After all, no matter what Shao Chun and the others did, it was impossible for them to resist his attack, let alone escape from his hands. After Mu Lingxian, Lin Yun was also severely injured. In the end, Ancestor Mu appeared in front of Shao Chun. At that moment, less than 10 breaths of time had passed. Shao Chun and the other world lords were all severely injured and sent flying by Ancestor Mu. Facing Ancestor Mu directly, Shao Chun finally experienced the strength of a primogenitor. Compared to Ancestor Chiu, Ancestor Mu's strength was obviously much stronger. This was because Ancestor Chiu did not have any killing intent or hostility towards them. However, Ancestor Mu was completely different. When facing Shao Chun and the others, Ancestor Mu did not hold back. Therefore, the pressure that Shao Chun felt was much stronger than when he had faced Ancestor Chiu. Shao Chun, you are indeed talented to be able to become a world lord in such a short time. Unfortunately, you are wrong. No one has ever had a good ending when they resist the origin realm. Although Ancestor Mu belonged to the primogenitor of the Dark Epoch, he had also heard of Shao Chun. After all, Shao Chun's performance was remarkable and had entered the eyes of the primogenitors. However, it was a pity that Shao Chun actually wanted to resist the origin realm. This was an extremely wrong and foolish decision. Upon hearing this, Shao Chun did not answer. Instead, he made a response that no one had expected. He slashed out with his sword and took the initiative to attack Ancestor Mu. Please collect, vote, recommend. Chapter 2798. Mu Lingxian, Lin Yun, Mo-Shi, and the others were severely injured by Ancestor Mu one after another. Moreover, none of them were able to withstand a single strike from Ancestor Mu. This showed how big the gap in strength between the two sides was. Mu Lingxian, Lin Yun, Mo-Shi, and the others were severely injured by Ancestor Mu one after another. Moreover, none of them were able to withstand a single strike from Ancestor Mu. This showed how big the gap in strength between the two sides was. At the same time, Ancestor Mu's expression of contempt from the beginning to the end made Xiao Chun furious. Xiao Chun had never looked down on the primogenitors, and he knew that his choice would eventually lead to him meeting the primogenitors one day. However, Xiao Chun didn't regret it, because Xiao Chun wasn't looking forward to the so-called New World at all. If such a world really appeared, then he might as well fight to the death. Defense was futile, so he might as well use offense instead of defense. This showed Xiao Chen's attitude. Although the primogenitors were strong, Xiao Chen wasn't afraid at all. This was what Xiao Chen wanted to tell the primogenitors. Patriarch Mu obviously did not expect that Xiao Chen would dare to take the initiative to attack under such circumstances. It could even be said that Xiao Chen had completely abandoned defense. The blade of the sword slashed, and Xiao Chen's attack actually hit Patriarch Mu. This didn't mean that Xiao Chen's strength suddenly increased, but Ancestor Mu wasn't prepared at all. The two of them were so close to each other that a sword wound appeared on his body and blood kept gushing out. However, although Xiao Chen's sword successfully hit Ancestor Mu, it didn't cause any substantial damage. It couldn't even be considered a light injury. At most, it was just a superficial wound. Even so, Ancestor Mu was still burning with anger. He glared at Xiao Chun and shouted coldly, "You're courting death." Patriarch Mu did not expect that he would be injured by Xiao Chun. Of course, he also did not expect that Xiao Chun would choose to abandon defense and take the initiative to attack at a time like this. However, regardless of the reason, Xiao Chen's sword had thoroughly infuriated Ancestor Mu. He slapped his palm out fiercely. In the face of Ancestor Mu's attack, Xiao Chun could be said to be completely defenseless and was hit directly by Ancestor Mu. Without any defense, Xiao Chen's situation was obviously more serious than Lin Yun and the rest. His entire body was instantly sent flying. His sternum immediately caved in, and he spat out several mouthfuls of blood. He had severely injured Xiao Chun with a single blow. Moreover, his injuries were much more serious than Lin Yun, Mu Lingxian, and the others. Even so, Ancestor Mu had no intention of stopping. Xiao Chun had actually injured him. In Ancestor Mu's opinion, this was a great insult to him. Therefore, Xiao Chun had to be the one. He leaped forward and instantly caught up with Xiao Chun, who was sent flying. Ancestor Mu intended to give Xiao Chun a final blow and kill him on the spot. Seeing that Ancestor Mu was about to attack again, Xiao Chun wanted to react. However, the intense pain in his body and the caved-in sternum made Xiao Chun feel powerless. Die! There was no way for him to react at all. Ancestor Mu snorted coldly and attacked Xiao Chun at the same time. He slapped his palm out again and aimed at Xiao Chen's head. Xiao Chun was about to be killed by Ancestor Mu. If this attack hit, Xiao Chun wouldn't have the slightest chance. However, at the critical moment, the beast slave suddenly appeared and blocked Ancestor Mu's attack for Xiao Chun. Book bag, net the power of blood qi erupted completely. At the same time, the beast slave's body changed, and she returned to her original appearance. As the ancestor of the beasts, the beast slave's bloodline was naturally the purest among the beasts. After she returned to her original form, her strength increased tremendously. Her entire body was snow white like a white deer. Her antlers were huge and sturdy. This was the beast slave's original form. The huge antlers collided with Ancestor Mu's palm. When the two collided, a terrifying gale sent Xiao Chun flying again. However, because of this, Xiao Chun managed to avoid a calamity. This was the first time the beast slave had returned to her original form. However, she had to do this in order to face Ancestor Mu. After all, there was a gap in strength. Moreover, Xiao Chun and the others obviously didn't have any combat strength. Next, the beast slave would probably have to face Ancestor Mu alone. Seeing that his attack was blocked by the beast slave, Ancestor Mu's eyes flashed with a trace of coldness. He said coldly, "Beast slave, are you determined to go against the origin world?" The beast slave didn't hesitate to return to her original form to save Xiao Chun and fight against him. Ancestor Mu's killing intent towards the beast slave grew stronger and stronger. In response, the beast slave only replied indifferently, "So what if I am?" After returning to her original form, The beast slave's power of blood chi was even more terrifying. Her entire body emitted a faint white light. This white light wasn't spiritual power, but the power of blood chi in her body. The power of blood chi was actually white. This was the terrifying thing about the beast slave. In the entire world, only the beast slave had such power of blood chi. After hearing the beast slave's answer, Ancestor Mu didn't say anything else and directly attacked. Since the beast slave was so stubborn, Ancestor Mu had no choice but to kill him. Just like what he said at the beginning, even if he had to pay a great price, he had to kill the beast slave today. Ancient life forms weren't easy to kill. It could even be said that they couldn't be killed. Even if a primogenitor attacked, it would be difficult to kill an ancient life form. However, Ancestor Mu was determined to kill the beast slave. Therefore, the aura on his body continued to rise. Obviously, he didn't hold back at all. Naturally, Ancestor Mu couldn't kill an ancient life form as easily as before. Since you want to die, I'll fulfill your wish. With a low growl, Ancestor Mu took the lead to attack the beast slave. His attacks became fiercer and his power was much stronger than before. In the face of Ancestor Mu's attack, the beast slave that had returned to its original form was also much stronger. For a moment, they were actually evenly matched. This was the only ancient life form in the world that could threaten the primogenitors. Its strength was indeed not to be underestimated. However, even though the beast slave was evenly matched with Ancestor Mu, it obviously wouldn't be able to last long in such a state. Ancestor Mu was clearly aware of this. Therefore, even though he was evenly matched with the beast slave, Ancestor Mu wasn't anxious at all. Now wasn't the time to kill the beast slave. When the beast slave was exhausted, it would be the time to kill him. He calmly fought the beast slave fiercely, constantly exhausting the beast slave's power of blood chi. In the battle between the primogenitor and the ancient life form, every collision between the two seemed like it was going to destroy the world. Just watching from afar was enough to make one's hair stand on end. Moreover, ordinary people wouldn't be able to participate in a battle of this level. Please collect, vote, recommend. Chapter 2799. Xiao, Chun, Lin Yun, and the rest were severely injured under Ancestor Mu's powerful attacks. Only the beast slave could fight with Ancestor Mu. Moreover, as the beast slave returned to her original form, she was indeed evenly matched with Ancestor Mu. At least that was the case for now. Xiao, Chun, Lin Yun, and the rest were severely injured under Ancestor Mu's powerful attacks. Only the beast slave could fight with Ancestor Mu. Moreover, as the beast slave returned to her original form, she was indeed evenly matched with Ancestor Mu. At least that was the case for now. However, this situation was only temporary. If this went on, the beast slave would probably not be able to hold on. Moreover, Ancestor Mu was stronger than the beast slave, so it wasn't impossible for him to find an opportunity to defeat the beast slave. Compared to the beast slave, it was obvious that Ancestor Mu's mood was much calmer. He wasn't affected by the beast slave's outburst at all. He continued to fight the beast slave at his own pace. On the other hand, although the beast slave was evenly matched with Ancestor Mu, it was obvious that she was more impatient. The white blood aura around her became denser, but it was a pity that the beast slave's attacks couldn't hurt Ancestor Mu. Every time, Ancestor Mu easily blocked them. Beast slave, is it worth it for you to do this for these people? Ancestor Mu said indifferently while blocking the beast slave's attacks. If the beast slave insisted on leaving, Ancestor Mu might not have been able to stop her. However, since the beast slave chose to fight to the death with him, Ancestor Mu had a chance to kill her. The beast slave was doing this to protect Xiao Chun and the rest. However, by doing so, the beast slave was putting herself in danger. Ancestor Mu didn't know Xiao Chun and the rest for a long time, but the beast slave was willing to do this for them. In his opinion, the beast slave didn't need to do this at all. However, the beast slave didn't seem to care about Ancestor Mu's question at all. Her attacks were still extremely ruthless, and Ancestor Mu could only deal with it with all his might. Facing the battle between the two, Lin Yun and the rest couldn't intervene. Moreover, everyone was seriously injured, especially Xiao Chun. He was caught off guard and was hit by Ancestor Mu. At this moment, his injuries were very serious. Lin Yun came to Xiao Chun and fed Xiao Chun a healing elixir. Although he managed to save his life, Xiao Chun had completely lost his ability to fight. His sternum was completely shattered. Such an injury would probably take a long time to heal. Moreover, Xiao Chun was no longer able to fight, and Lin Yun couldn't do anything about it. It was already a miracle that he could keep his life. While confirming Xiao Chun's injuries, Lin Yun looked at the beast slave and Ancestor Mu who were fighting fiercely. As expected, Ancestor Mu slowly gained the upper hand as time passed. Although he couldn't suppress the beast slave, at least the initiative was back in Ancestor Mu's hands now. If this continued, the beast slave's defeat was inevitable. At this moment, the beast slave was just stalling for time. In this regard, Lin Yun said to Mo, Ancestor He, and the rest, we still have to take action. Otherwise, we'll be in danger if the beast slave is defeated. Lin Yun and the rest were also injured, but they still had the strength to fight. Lin Yun definitely didn't want the beast slave to fail in the current situation. However, if the beast slave and Ancestor Mu were to continue fighting like this, the outcome wouldn't change. Therefore, Lin Yun and the rest had to take action. They still had to find an opportunity to launch a sneak attack on Ancestor Mu from the side. At the very least, they could reduce the pressure on the beast slave. After all, the beast slave could be said to be their pillar of support. If the beast slave was defeated, then no one present would be able to survive. This was what Lin Yun meant. Therefore, Ancestor He, Mo, and the rest nodded in response and didn't have any objections. After everyone finished discussing, they took action one after another and began to look for an opportunity to divert Ancestor Mu's attention from the side. Ancestor Mu, who was fighting fiercely with the beast slave, was suddenly struck by Lin Yun's attack. A trace of coldness flashed through his eyes, but because of the beast slave's obstruction, he couldn't attack Lin Yun. With the addition of Lin Yun and the rest, the pressure on the beast slave was indeed reduced by a lot. At least, it was much easier than before. On the other hand, Ancestor Mu had to divert a portion of his attention to guard against the sneak attack of Lin Yun and the rest. This way, he wouldn't be able to deal with the beast slave with all his strength. A bunch of ants. The coldness in Ancestor Mu's eyes became more exuberant as he was annoyed by Lin Yun and the rest, and he shouted coldly. If it wasn't for the beast slave, he would have killed Lin Yun and the rest long ago. Ancestor Mu's killing intent towards these ants was extremely dense. Unfortunately, before he dealt with the beast slave, Ancestor Mu couldn't attack Lin Yun and the rest. The beast slave was the main attacker, while Lin Yun and the rest were supporting and launching sneak attacks from his side, causing Ancestor Mu to be distracted. Just like that, the battle returned to an inexplicable state of balance. With the help of Lin Yun and the rest, the beast slave was evenly matched with Ancestor Mu. Even so, everyone still couldn't let their guard down. Although both sides seemed to be evenly matched, the beast slave and Lin Yun still couldn't defeat Ancestor Mu. Both sides could only maintain a relatively balanced state, but Lin Yun and the rest still couldn't defeat Ancestor Mu. Since they couldn't defeat him, the final outcome wouldn't change much. It would only delay some time. Even though they knew the outcome, Lin Yun and the rest couldn't do anything because they had already tried their best. However, it was almost impossible to defeat Ancestor Mu unless another ancient life form joined forces with the beast slave. Only then would it be possible to defeat Ancestor Mu. However, they didn't know where Shi Song was now, so Lin Yun and the rest didn't dare to hold too much hope for him to come. Do you think this can change the outcome? Wishful thinking. Ancestor Mu clearly knew this, so after his initial anger, he quickly calmed down. As long as he held on, it was only a matter of time before the beast slave and Lin Yun were defeated. At that time, he could defeat the beast slave and kill everyone one by one. Ancestor Mu knew very well that he still had the advantage. However, Just as Ancestor Mu finished speaking and Lin Yun and the rest didn't have a better idea, two terrifying auras came from the spatial tunnel. Then, Song and a handsome young man appeared before everyone. Song's appearance put the beast slave in a good mood. He couldn't help but reveal a smile on his face. Perhaps he couldn't do anything to Ancestor Mu before, but everything changed with Song's arrival. No matter how strong Ancestor Mu was, it was impossible for him to fight two ancient life forms and remain undefeated. Request collection, request monthly votes, request recommendation. In a chapter. Chapter 2800. Everyone rejoiced with Song's appearance. However, Muzu's face became extremely ugly. Clearly, he knew very well what Song's arrival meant. Everyone rejoiced with Song's appearance. However, Muzu's face became extremely ugly. Clearly, he knew very well what Song's arrival meant. Originally, he was confident that he could kill the beast slave and Xiao Chun, but Song's arrival made it impossible. As a primogenitor, although Ancestor Mu was arrogant, he was definitely not an idiot. He knew very well that no matter how strong he was, it was impossible for him to deal with two ancient life forms at the same time. Moreover, to Song's surprise, Song was not the only one who had come. The young man by Song's side was also an ancient life form called Mu Ling. He didn't expect Song to bring him along. Looking at Song and Mu Ling, Ancestor Mu's expression turned cold. On the other hand, the beast slave said unhappily, "If you didn't come, I would have had to take care of you. With your body, even Ancestor Mu can't casually kill you." "Aren't I fine now?" Song replied nonchalantly. The beast slave did not have a good time when he fought with Ancestor Mu. After all, he had to fight a primogenitor by himself. Even for the beast slave, it was extremely stressful. However, now that Song and Mu Ling had arrived, all the pressure was on Ancestor Mu's side. Regardless of whether they could kill him, they could definitely defeat Ancestor Mu. It could even be said that if Ancestor Mu wanted to fight to the death with the help of the three ancient life forms, there was a chance that they could kill Ancestor Mu. The tables had turned in an instant, especially when Song brought Mu Ling. It was simply a pleasant surprise that made everyone feel great. Even Lin Yun, Mo He, and the others heaved a sigh of relief. "I didn't expect you to be able to find little Mu Zi. You're really something." As an ancient life form, the beast slave obviously knew Mu Ling and seemed to have a good relationship with him. He immediately teased Mu Ling from the beginning. In the face of the beast slave's ridicule, the wood spirit said helplessly, "Looks like we came early. We should let Ancestor Mu teach you a lesson." The wood spirit had some understanding of the beast slave's character, so he didn't mind. Upon hearing his words, the beast slave curled his lips and didn't say anything else. While they were talking, Song and Mu Ling came to the beast slave side. When the two of them appeared, Ancestor Mu had already stopped attacking. Looking at the beast slave, Song, and Mu Ling standing side by side, the coldness in Ancestor Mu's eyes was extremely dense. Wood spirit, even you want to get involved in this matter and go against the origin world? Song and the beast slave had already joined Xiao Chen's alliance. Ancestor Mu knew this, but the appearance of the wood spirit was something he hadn't expected. At the same time, the anger in his heart grew stronger. Sure enough, these ancient life forms were a huge threat to the origin world. Once the matter of the new world was over, he had to annihilate these ancient life forms. He wouldn't hesitate to pay a heavy price. In Ancestor Mu's opinion, the origin world had turned a blind eye to ancient life forms like the beast slaves because it was afraid that both sides would suffer heavy losses. But now, the threat of these ancient life forms had been completely exposed. Moreover, they were actually acting recklessly against the origin world. This was completely unforgivable. Previously, for the sake of the overall situation, the origin world could tolerate these ancient life forms. As long as they didn't do anything out of line, the primogenitors of the origin world could indeed turn a blind eye to them. However, it was different now. They had jumped out one by one to go against the origin world. This was intolerable. Moreover, After experiencing this incident, the primogenitors were fully aware of the threat of these ancient life forms. In order to maintain the rule of the origin world, these ancient life forms had to be eliminated. However, this was obviously a matter for the future. At least for now, Ancestor Mu didn't have the slightest chance of winning, let alone killing the beast slave and the other two. It was fate, right? Song and the wood spirit didn't mind Ancestor Mu's cold gaze at all, especially the wood spirit. He only smiled faintly after hearing Ancestor Mu's words. Your origin world has indeed gone overboard with the matter of the new world. Give up on the idea of the new world, and I'll leave now. How about it? The reason why the wood spirit had followed Song here was also because of the new world. The wood spirit wasn't interested in the new world that the origin world had predicted. He even hated it. That was why he had come here, to stop it from happening. Ancestor Mu's eyes flashed with killing intent when he heard the wood spirit's words. He said coldly, "Are you threatening me?" "It's not a threat. People who walk different paths can't make plans together. I just want to stop something from happening," the wood spirit said indifferently. The wood spirit's attitude was extremely indifferent. The more indifferent it was, the more Ancestor Mu couldn't suppress the anger in his heart. Since when had he been threatened by an ancient life form? Even an ancient life form couldn't threaten the progenitor. However, the wood spirit was threatening him right in front of his face. Compared to the wood spirit, the beast slave was more direct. He had been suppressing his anger because of the battle just now. At this moment, he shouted at Ancestor Mu mercilessly. "Why are you talking so much nonsense? Old thing, are you still going to fight or not? I hope you continue to fight, because that way, the three of us can join forces to kill you here. Kill him." This was probably the first time Ancestor Mu had heard such words. Since the day he was born, when had anyone dared to say that they could kill him? However, the bee slave just had to say such words right in front of him. The bee slave really hoped that Ancestor Mu would fight and not retreat, because that way, the three of them would have a chance to kill Ancestor Mu again. Otherwise, if the old thing wanted to leave, the bee slave and the other two might not be able to stop him. After all, Ancestor Mu had a lot of tricks up his sleeves, and it was impossible for him not to have any life-saving trump cards. If Ancestor Mu wanted to leave, it would be difficult for the three ancient life forms to stop him even if they joined forces. As long as Ancestor Mu didn't retreat, the beast slave and the other two would exhaust him continuously. Only then would they have a chance to kill him. It could be considered as a provocation. However, it was obvious that Ancestor Mu wasn't a hothead. After hearing the beast slave's words, even though Ancestor Mu's anger was about to burst out, he still maintained his calm and spoke while gritting his teeth. "Beast slave, very well. But don't worry, one day, I will definitely kill you with my own hands. Besides, do you really think that the three of you can change anything? It won't be this simple next time." After that, Ancestor Mu didn't wait for the bee slave and the other two to respond. He vanished on the spot, as though he had chosen to retreat for the time being. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Chapter 28:01. In the end, Ancestor Mu chose to retreat. After all, even Ancestor Mu would find it difficult to contend against three ancient life forms. Temporarily retreating was the best choice. Otherwise, it would be like what the beast slave had said. He would give them a chance to kill him. In the end, Ancestor Mu chose to retreat. After all, even Ancestor Mu would find it difficult to contend against three ancient life forms. Temporarily retreating was the best choice. Otherwise, it would be like what the beast slave had said. He would give them a chance to kill him. If the three ancient life forms joined forces, they would indeed have a chance to kill a primogenitor. The bee slave and the other two didn't stop Ancestor Mu and allowed him to leave. After all, if Ancestor Mu wanted to leave, the three of them wouldn't be able to stop him. Moreover, now wasn't the time to consider such things. After the previous battle, Lin Yun, Mo He, and the others were heavily injured, not to mention Xiao Chun, who was unconscious. Soon, they returned to the Immortal Palace. This place had become the Alliance's headquarters. The aftermath would naturally be handled by the subordinates. Facing the beast slave, Sure Song, and with spirit, Mo, he, ancestor He, Mu Ling Xian, and the other world masters were very respectful. After all, they were indeed powerful and could be said to be the Alliance's trump card. They were also the only existences that could contend against the primogenitors. They respectfully invited the three to the Immortal Palace. Before long, Qin Shi, Lu Bingning, Dong Fongyun, and Mo He's family arrived in the primordial world. This allowed Dong Fongyun and Mo He to breathe a sigh of relief. However, after learning that Xiao Qian was heavily injured and unconscious, Qin Shi and the others were still worried. Fortunately, with Spirit's help, Xiao Qian's injuries were completely stabilized. In the future, as long as he recovered for a period of time, there wouldn't be any major problems. As an ancient life form, Spirit had personally treated Xiao Qian. Clearly, there was nothing to worry about. However, even though Xiao Qian was fine, no one dared to lower their guard in the slightest. After this incident, the Alliance and the Origin World would definitely become enemies. Next time, the Origin World wouldn't just send Ancestor Mu alone. The other primogenitors would probably show up in person. At that time, would the three of them be able to withstand the attacks of several primal ancestors? Everyone knew the answer. Although the three beast men were strong, it would be difficult for them to win against the primal ancestors. In a one-on-one fight, the three beast men would have a hard time defeating a primal ancestor. It would be difficult for them to even hold their own against a primal ancestor. So, they weren't happy at all because they'd repelled Ancestor Mu because it didn't mean anything. On the contrary, it would only infuriate the Origin World even more. They had to increase their guard, especially around the primordial world. As long as someone from the Origin World appeared, they had to know immediately. After being unconscious for an entire day, Xiao Qian slowly woke up. As soon as he opened his eyes, he saw Qin Shi, 100-Flower Fairy, and the other women guarding him. Xiao Qian smiled. Facing their worried gazes, Xiao Qian smiled to show that he was fine. With Spirit's treatment, Xiao Qian's injuries recovered quickly. After all, how could an ordinary person compare to the methods of an ancient life form? After learning that he had fainted, Sure Song and Spirit rushed over while Ancestor Mu took the initiative to retreat. Xiao Qian didn't say anything. The result was perfect, but he still couldn't let his guard down. After Xiao Qian woke up, Qin Shi, 100-Flower Fairy, and the other women heaved a sigh of relief. But soon, Lin Yun, Mu Ling Xian, Mo, and the others took the initiative to come to him because they still needed to discuss a very important matter. That was how to deal with the counterattack of the Origin World. Brother Xiao Qian, you already know the situation. I'm afraid that the Origin World won't look down on us anymore. I guess we'll have to confront the Origin World head-on. They explained the situation to Xiao Qian. In fact, even if Lin Yun and the others didn't say it, Xiao Qian could guess it himself. With the prideful characters of the Origin World ancestors, it was impossible for them to not do anything after suffering such a big loss. In other words, the Origin World ancestors probably couldn't wait to get rid of them as soon as possible. Therefore, it was really time for them to confront the Origin World head-on. Currently, the only thing Xiao Qian and the others could rely on was Sure Song, Beast Slave, and Spirit, the three ancient life forms. Of course, Sure Song and Spirit were still trying to rope in the other ancient life forms. Unfortunately, they hadn't received any response up until now. Of course, the other ancient life forms didn't refuse, but they seemed to be thinking about it. The situation wasn't very optimistic, especially the Origin World. It was like a huge mountain that was pressing down on everyone's heads. Previously, only one Origin World ancestor had attacked, but it had almost forced everyone to the point of no return. Now, if more Origin World ancestors attacked together, how could they resist? To put it bluntly, it was still a difference in strength. However, strength couldn't be improved overnight. Especially for world lords like Xiao Qian, it was almost impossible for them to improve their strength unless they could find the land of creation. It was the land of creation that Xiaozhu mentioned. Only that place could allow Shao Chun and the other world lords to improve their strength. However, the land of creation was very mysterious. Even the beast slaves and Xiaozu didn't know where the entrance to the land of creation was. It could be said that it was very difficult for everyone to enter the land of creation, let alone other things. However, they didn't have any other better methods. Only the land of creation could give them a chance of survival. After telling Mo, he, and the others about the land of creation, they all frowned when they heard what Shao Chun said. It was their only chance at the moment, but it was also extremely difficult. Seeing that everyone was frowning, Shao Chun said in a low voice, "Everyone, actually, we didn't have a way out from the beginning. Everything that's happening now is already within our expectations. From the moment we formed the alliance, it was inevitable that we would become the enemy of the origin world. Thus, things have developed as we expected. If we want to resist the origin world, the only way is to go to the place of creation. Thus, I suggest that the alliance should disperse to hide while we search for the place of creation. Only by entering the place of creation can we have a chance to resist the origin world." The current situation wasn't unexpected. It could even be said that they had expected it. However, foreseeing it was one thing. When they really had to face the origin world head-on, they couldn't let go of the fear in their hearts. After all, the oppression of the origin world had already been deeply rooted in their hearts. It was indeed difficult for them to turn the situation around. Please add it to your collection. Monthly vote. Recommended. End of chapter. Chapter 28:02. No matter how difficult it was, Shao Chun and the other world lords had to find a way to enter the land of creation and search for that one and only chance. For this reason, Shao Chun didn't hesitate to suggest that everyone in the alliance should temporarily disperse and hide. That way, even the primogenitors of the origin world wouldn't be able to find them in the many universes. No matter how difficult it was, Shao Chun and the other world lords had to find a way to enter the land of creation and search for that one and only chance. For this reason, Shao Chun didn't hesitate to suggest that everyone in the alliance should temporarily disperse and hide. That way, even the primogenitors of the origin world wouldn't be able to find them in the many universes. After hearing Shao Chun's suggestion, Lin Yun, Mu Lingxian, and the other world lords fell silent. No one refuted Shao Chun's suggestion because Shao Chun's suggestion was indeed the only feasible method. However, there were many unknowns in it. It could be said that whether it was entering the land of creation or temporarily dispersing the alliance, it was filled with many uncertainties. No one knew what the outcome would be. However, while everyone was silent, Shi Song, Mu Ling, and Beast Slave walked in. Shi Song nodded and said, "Shao Chun's suggestion is the only method we have right now." As they spoke, the three of them arrived in front of everyone. Shi Song continued, "Based on the current situation, the origin world's counterattack is inevitable. However, with our current strength, it's almost impossible for us to stop the origin world. Even if the three of us join forces, we can only stop 3 primogenitors at most. Moreover, we don't have any chance of winning. However, there are more than 3 primogenitors in the origin world. Shi Song and the other 2 world lords could resist for a while if it was a one-on-one battle. However, it was impossible for them to win. However, if the number of primogenitors outnumbered them, it would be even more impossible for them to win. Therefore, the wisest choice at the moment was to avoid the brunt of the attack, which was the solution that Shao Chun had mentioned earlier. Everyone nodded slightly when they heard Shi Song's suggestion. However, someone still said, "You're right. However, no one knows where the land of creation is. Even if we want to, we're powerless." They didn't even know how to enter the land of creation. Therefore, even if they wanted to, they were powerless. However, after hearing his words, the wood spirit smiled and said, "I know someone who might be able to help us. He definitely knows the entrance to the land of creation. You're not thinking of looking for that old fellow, are you?" Hearing this, the beast slave immediately guessed who the wood spirit was talking about and asked with some surprise. Mu Ling didn't hide it. Mu Ling's words, and the primogenitor of the land of creation was creation. Is there a problem with that person? There isn't a problem, but, Sai, how should I put it? Anyway, that guy has a strange personality. I don't want to have too much contact with him. The primogenitor replied. After Xiao Qian's questioning and the bee slave's explanation, everyone finally knew who the person that Mu Ling was talking about was. He was also an ancient life form. However, compared to other ancient life forms, he was an extremely strange existence. It wasn't accurate to say that he was an ancient life form. However, it wasn't accurate to say that he wasn't either. Nual Library simply put, that guy was the consciousness of space, which was the origin energy that controlled space. That's right, they were formed from origin force. In the world, there were two most powerful forces, time and space. The origin force of these two forces was clearly much more powerful than the other origin forces. As a result, the two origin forces of time and space had developed their own consciousness and could even take form. Normally, they were no different from ordinary life forms. However, they weren't true life forms after all, so it was reasonable to say that they weren't ancient life forms. However, the two origins were very powerful and weren't weaker than ancient life forms at all. At the same time, because everyone had existed for a very long time, it was inevitable that they would come into contact with each other. As time passed, there was a high probability that the time origin and space origin would be classified as ancient life forms. After hearing the primogenitor's explanation, Xiao Chun and the rest were enlightened. Since the primogenitor of space was an existence that controlled the power of space, he must have some understanding of the method to enter the land of creation. Therefore, Mu Ling said that he could definitely help. However, the primogenitor had a headache just thinking about asking that guy for help. That guy was definitely a difficult existence to deal with. However, there was no other way at the moment. Besides looking for the primogenitor of space, who else could know the location of the entrance to the land of creation? The primogenitor wasn't good at thinking about these things. Therefore, after explaining the matter of the primogenitor of space, the primogenitor said unhappily, "Forget it. I don't care about these things anymore. You guys can do as you see fit." The primogenitor of space was like this. If you asked her to charge into battle, she would absolutely have nothing to say. However, if you asked her to give advice, then it would really be too much. Therefore, Xiao Chun could only smile bitterly in response to the primogenitor's reaction. Then, he looked at the primogenitor and said, "Senior, are you confident that he can help us? As long as we can find him, then it's in the bag. Now, the most crucial problem is how to find that guy. After all, that guy is the most difficult existence to find. Even if the origin world takes action, it's still very difficult to find his exact whereabouts unless he's willing to give himself up." The primogenitor smiled bitterly. As the primogenitor of space, she was born with the ability to disregard the obstruction of space and travel through any place at her will. Therefore, it wasn't easy to find that guy. Xiao Chen nodded when he heard that. However, the primogenitor spoke very quickly. "You can't help us with these things for the time being. Leave it to us. You guys should deal with the matters of the alliance first. Once we find that guy, we'll set off immediately." It was naturally difficult for Xiao Chun and the others to interfere with the search for the primogenitor of space. After all, it was the first time they had heard of the existence of the primogenitor of space. It was simply unrealistic for Xiao Chun and the others to find the primogenitor of space by themselves. Therefore, the primogenitor of space directly took over this matter. After all, compared to Xiao Chen's group, it was clearly more convenient for the primogenitor of space to act. As for Xiao Chen's group, they were mainly dealing with the matters of the alliance. It wasn't an easy task to break up the alliance and disperse it to various places. Moreover, the primogenitor of space wasn't in the mood to interfere with this matter. Therefore, it was better for them to divide the work among themselves. This way, the efficiency would be higher. Begging to be collected, begging to be recommended. Chapter 28:03. The task of searching for the space origin was given to Mu Ling, Shi Song, and the other two. After all, They were ancient creatures and had a lot of contact with the space origin. Moreover, they had more means. It would be more convenient for them to search for the space origin. As for the alliance, it was naturally left to Shao Chun and the other world lords. After hearing Mu Ling's words, Shao Chun and Lin Yun looked at each other. Then, Lin Yun asked, "Does anyone have any objections to Senior Mu Ling's suggestion?" After all, it was an alliance. Therefore, many things needed to be discussed and resolved. After hearing Lin Yun's words, the other world lords nodded in agreement. "I agree. I agree too. No problem." Since everyone agreed, the matter was naturally settled. Mu Ling and Shi Song didn't waste any time. After giving a few instructions, they left directly. It was still unknown when the Origin World's counterattack would arrive. However, it shouldn't be too long. Therefore, Shao Chun and the others had to hurry up. Otherwise, it would be troublesome if the Origin World's ancestors arrived and they still hadn't settled the matter. Time was of the essence, and they had to make every second count. Shao Chun and the others clearly understood this, so after Shi Song, Mu Ling, and the others left, Lin Yun immediately suggested, "Everyone, time is tight. Why don't we take each universe as a boundary and handle the matters of each universe separately? We should try our best to disperse the people and let them hide in each universe. This way we can save time." The meaning of Lin Yun's suggestion was very simple. It was for the world lords to handle their own matters and clean up the snow in front of their own door. This was indeed the most convenient and fast method. After all, they were obviously more familiar with the people under their command. It would be more convenient to deal with them. They didn't need to arrange everything in the name of the alliance. That would be troublesome. As for the future, it wouldn't be troublesome to wait for the world lords to come out of the land of creation and then gather everyone together. Lin Yun's suggestion was quickly approved by the various world lords. However, there was still someone who was concerned about Shao Chun and asked, "Brother Shao Chun, your body is in such a state. Do you need our help?" Shao Chun had not recovered from his injuries and was still very weak. Therefore, everyone was concerned about him. In response, Shao Chun smiled and said, "It's nothing. It's just a small injury. It's nothing." "That's good, but if you need anything, just let me know." Now that everyone was on the same boat, no matter what grudges they had before, it was no longer important. Helping each other was the most basic thing. From the attitude of Shao Chun and the other world lords, it was obvious that there was no problem within the alliance. After all, everyone had the same goal at the moment, and they all felt the same sense of threat. So naturally, they were tightly huddled together. Humans were like that. They could share trials and tribulations, but it was very difficult for them to share blessings. In the face of danger, people would instinctively gather together, and once the danger was gone, there would often be many unnecessary conflicts. After settling the matter, Lin Yun and the others quickly left. They had to make the best use of their time to deal with the remaining matters. Shao Chun did not stay idle either. He said to Qin Yao and Qin Luo, "Go and invite Big Brother and a second sister here." He ordered someone to invite Xin Yuan Ling and Long Qing. At this moment, Shao Chun also saw Qin Shiru and Fairy Baiwa staring at him. Before the girls could speak, Shao Chun already knew what they wanted to say, so he said with a helpless smile, "Everyone, you guys also want to go to the land of creation? Husband, you promised us that you wouldn't leave us behind again." Gu Lingyao immediately replied. He had indeed promised this, but Shao Chun still said helplessly, "Then what about Yao Luo and Wan Wan? If he and Qin Shiru went to the land of creation, what would happen to Xiao Yao, Xiao Lao, Xiao Wan, and the others?" This was a problem. However, Gu Lingyao was a little unhappy about this, so Fairy Baiwa explained, "We can let father and mother take care of them for the time being, as well as Qin Yao, Qin Luo, and the people from the sacred palace. There shouldn't be a problem. Furthermore, based on the current situation, it's probably more dangerous for the children to follow us." Fairy Baihua's consideration was thorough. Shao Qing, Bai Ruyue, Qin Yao, and the others would indeed have no problem taking care of the children, not to mention the people from the sacred palace. Furthermore, compared to following Shao Qing and Bai Ruyue, it was more dangerous for the children to follow her. It was obvious that Xiao Chun, Qin Shu, and the others had probably become the top targets of the origin world. The children would only be safe if they stayed away from her. Apparently, Fairy of 100 Flowers had already thought of this, and Xiao Chun did not insist on it. Instead, he simply nodded and agreed. Since the girls wanted to go to the place of creation with him, then so be it. Of course, apart from the girls, Xin Yuanling and Long Qing would definitely go with them. It didn't take long for Xin Yuanling and Long Qing to rush over and explain the situation in detail. In the end, Xiao Chun said, "Big brother, I'll leave the matter of the sacred palace to you. Remember, you must split everyone up. That's the only way to avoid the origin world's search." They couldn't move as a group because that would make them too big a target and it would be easy for the origin world to find them. Judging from the current situation, once the origin world tracked them down, the consequences would be disastrous. Xiao Chen reminded solemnly. Xin Yuanling naturally wouldn't be careless and simply nodded. "Don't worry, third brother. I know what to do." Yes, I naturally have nothing to worry about when it comes to Big Brother. However, I still need to remind the people below to not lower their guard at all. After all, the enemy is from the origin world, and they have endless tricks up their sleeves. We don't know what they have. Now that things had developed to this point, it could be said that there was no way to retreat. The only thing Xiao Chun could do was to be as careful as possible. At least before they had enough strength to contend with the origin world, they had to avoid contact with the origin world as much as possible. They couldn't let the primogenitors find their whereabouts. In addition, they had to act quickly. After all, there wasn't much time left for Xiao Chun and the others to waste. At the same time, apart from the people in the Hongmeng world, the people from the Sacred Palace who were still in the Great Thousand Worlds also had to leave and hide. As for the Sacred Palace, they could only give up on it. They didn't want any cultivation secret realms. Everyone had to leave the Sacred Palace immediately and hide in the various universes. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Chapter 2804. Xiao Qin's determination was evident from the fact that he had even given up on the Sacred Palace's headquarters. However, Long Qing, Qin Shiru, and the other women felt that it was a pity. "Husband, little brother, the Sacred Palace is our root. Isn't it a pity to give it up just like that?" Xiao Qin's determination was evident from the fact that he had even given up on the Sacred Palace's headquarters. However, Long Qing, Qin Shiru, and the other women felt that it was a pity. "Husband, little brother, the Sacred Palace is our root. Isn't it a pity to give it up just like that? We don't have a choice. At this juncture, we'll only pay a heavier price if we don't give it up. If we leave people behind to guard the Sacred Palace, not only will the Sacred Palace be destroyed, but those people will also be killed." Xiao Qin knew very well that the Sacred Palace would not be able to be defended. Therefore, Xiao Chun had no intention of continuing to protect the Sacred Palace from the very beginning. Now, Xiao Chun could only ensure the survival of the Sacred Palace's people. This was already the limit. As for the foundation, the palace, the cultivation mystic realms, and other things, they could no longer be kept. Compared to their lives, what was more important? The Sacred Palace could be rebuilt if it was destroyed, but if people died, it would be completely over. Desperate times call for desperate measures. If you still can't bear to part with this and that, you'll only end up empty-handed in the end. After hearing Xiao Qin's words, the women did not say anything else. They also knew what Xiao Qin meant. However, they could not help but sigh in their hearts when it came to the Sacred Palace. Unfortunately, they could not change anything. After giving instructions, Xiao Chun said to Xin Yuanling, "Big brother, I'll leave this matter to you. Remember, you must be quick. We don't have much time." "Don't worry, I'll do it now." Xin Yuanling nodded heavily. Now, it was a race against time. Every second was very important. Xiao Chun understood, and so did Xin Yuanling. Now that Xiao Chun was injured, there were many things that he could not do himself, so this heavy burden could only be handed over to Xin Yuanling. Without wasting any time, Xin Yuanling immediately left and began to deal with these matters. Xiao Chun had given Xin Yuanling 3 days. Within 3 days, he had to deal with these matters and get everyone from the sacred palace to leave the primordial world or the great thousand world and hide in other universes. Furthermore, for the sake of safety, Shao Chun had specially instructed Xianyuan Ling not to reveal everyone's location. In other words, no one knew where the others were or which universe they had gone to. This was also to prevent someone from leaking the location of the others after being captured. Only Xianyuan Ling and Shao Chun knew which universe the people of the Holy Palace had gone to and where they were hiding. No one else knew. While Shao Chun's side began to move, Lin Yun and the other world masters did not remain idle and also began to evacuate. Moreover, the people in the various universes had no contact with each other, so they did not know each other's location. It could be said that the confidentiality work was done to the extreme. This way, even if someone was captured by the origin world, it would be impossible for them to reveal the location of the others. Everyone's safety was protected to the greatest extent. Following the actions of the various world masters, the entire primordial world fell into complete chaos. Starships began to rapidly leave the primordial world and disappear into the endless starry sky. At this moment, standing outside the black hole of the primordial world, one could see starships leaving the primordial world one after another. Shao Chun and the others had already reacted as soon as possible. On the other side, Ancestor Mu, who had been defeated in the primordial world, returned to the origin world in anger 2 days later and immediately hurriedly discussed matters with the other primogenitors. I love Chinese. The location was set in the middle of the Righteous Path Alliance and the Dark Epic. In a simple and unadorned hall, Ancestor Mu, Qing Zhu, Ancestor Qiu, and the other primogenitors of the Righteous Path Alliance and the Dark Epic were all present. Everyone sat in a circle, and Ancestor Mu said with a cold expression, "The ancient era creatures are too powerful to be eliminated. They have always been a threat to our origin world. Therefore, I would like to take this opportunity to eliminate all the ancient era creatures in one fell swoop to prevent future troubles." This trip to the primordial world had filled Ancestor Mu with a belly full of anger. Not only had he failed to destroy Shao Chen's alliance, but he had also been threatened by the Beast Slave and had been forced to retreat in the end. This was the first time Ancestor Mu had encountered such a situation in his life. Hearing Ancestor Mu's words, the other primogenitors also knew what had happened in the primordial world. They knew that Ancestor Mu had been forced to retreat by Shi Song, Mu Ling, and the Beast Slave together. Their hearts were burning with anger. Although Ancestor Mu's words were filled with anger and self-consciousness, it was undeniable that the ancient era creatures did pose a threat to the origin world. Especially this time, the ancient era creatures had indeed challenged the origin world's bottom line. However, it was too presumptuous to think that they could destroy the ancient creatures just because of that. Moreover, the ancient creatures couldn't be destroyed so easily. Although the origin world was strong, the alliance of all the ancient creatures was enough to give the origin world a headache. Because of this, Ancestor Qiu said indifferently after hearing Ancestor Mu's words, "It doesn't look like you want to eliminate the ancient era creatures so easily. Ancestor Mu, you should calm down." Ancestor Qiu tried to persuade Ancestor Mu to calm down, but Ancestor Mu sneered and said, "Humph, don't think that I don't know what you're thinking. I'm very calm now. But are you really from the origin world? Why didn't you kill Shao Chun and the others last time? Don't forget that our origin world was originally one." Ancestor Mu's anger grew when he heard Ancestor Qiu's words. In his opinion, Ancestor Qiu was to blame for this matter because he hadn't killed Shao Chun and the others, nor had he killed the Beast Slave. If Ancestor Qiu had killed the Beast Slave, he wouldn't have been defeated and left. Even if he had faced the two ancient era creatures, Shi Song and Mu Ling, he wouldn't have been in such a sorry state. At least, he wouldn't have run away without a fight. Ancestor Qiu didn't agree with the establishment of a new world. The other primogenitors already knew this from the beginning. In the end, because most of the primogenitors agreed, Ancestor Qiu had no choice but to obey. After all, as he said, He couldn't betray the origin world under any circumstances. Even so, Ancestor Chio's face turned ugly when he was scolded by Ancestor Mu. He snorted coldly. Humph, you're not strong enough, but you're blaming others. What a joke. What did you say? I said you're not strong enough. You're not a match for them. How can you have the face to blame others now? Ancestor Chio didn't give Ancestor Mu any face at all. Ancestor Mu stood up angrily and glared at Ancestor Chio. He seemed as if he would attack at any moment. Please add me to your collection. Please recommend me. Chapter 28:05. Ancestor Mu and Ancestor Chio didn't back down. Seeing that they were about to fight, Ancestor Qing and the other dark epic progenitor spoke up. Ancestor Mu and Ancestor Chio didn't back down. Seeing that they were about to fight, Ancestor Qing and the other dark epic progenitor spoke up as well. All right, both of you calm down. What's the point of arguing like this? Ancestor Mu was infuriated by Beast Slave and the other ancient creatures, while Ancestor Chio held a grudge against him because he didn't attack Xiao, Chun, and the others. Even so, their argument was completely meaningless. The matter of the ancient creatures was indeed a little troublesome, and Ancestor Mu's anger wasn't unreasonable. Therefore, their argument wouldn't solve anything. After Ancestor Qing and the other progenitor stepped forward to dissuade them, the other progenitor from the Righteous Path Alliance said, Ancestor Chio, we know what you're thinking. However, the matter of the ancient creatures is a huge threat to the origin world. Therefore, now is not the time for you to hesitate. Chiozu didn't agree with the creation of the new world. However, the threat of the ancient creatures to the origin world did exist. Therefore, Chiozu shouldn't have any thoughts of harming the origin world at this moment. Chiozu nodded faintly and said, I've already said that I won't betray the origin world no matter what. My words are still valid. Letting Xiao Chun and Lin Yun off last time was the only thing Chiozu could do. If they met again in the future, even Chiozu couldn't remain indifferent. After hearing Chiozu's words, everyone stopped arguing about this matter. Although Mu Zu was still furious, he did not say anything else. After a cold snort, he returned to his seat. After a short argument, the progenitors calmed down. Then, one of the Righteous Path Alliance's progenitors spoke up. Let's deal with the so-called alliance first. Since Beast Slave, Shi Song, and Mu Ling are determined to go against the origin world, we'll destroy them together. Ancestor Qing, you'll come with me to the Hongmeng world and the Dark Epic Alliance. Send 2 progenitors with us. I don't believe Beast Slave and the others can overturn the situation. Since Ancestor Mu had suffered a great loss when he went to the primordial world alone last time, the origin world would send 4 primal ancestors this time. They wanted to see what the Beast Slaves could do this time. Ancestor Mu, of course, volunteered to go to the Hongmeng world. Ancestor Mu hadn't forgotten about the humiliation last time. This time, he would go to the Hongmeng world and make them pay a heavy price. He would even kill them to kill the 3, to kill 2s, to kill them, to pay a heavy price. To go to the Hongmeng world. And thus, the 4-foot, going to Hong, to go to the Hong, to go to the Hong, to go to the Hong, to go to Hong, to go to the Hong, to go. So, and that want. Of course, other than the 4 progenitors, the rest of the origin world's experts also went with them. This time, the attack on the Hongmeng world wasn't the same as before. Obviously, the origin world was serious. They had thrown away their underestimation and carelessness. They wanted to deal a devastating blow to Xiao Chun and the others. No one had ever been able to stop what the origin world wanted to do, including the Ancient Era's creatures. This time, the Ancient Era's creatures had stepped forward to stop the origin world. This made the progenitors of the origin world feel a chill in their hearts. After the matter was settled, everyone dispersed and prepared to leave. Before Ancestor Qing left, he went to find Chiozu. Looking at Chiozu's indifferent face, Ancestor Qing said helplessly, Temple Street, I know you're not happy about the new world, but no matter what, you're still a member of the origin world. You have to understand this. I said I won't betray the origin world. I know that. However, The new world is the general trend. You can't stop it. If so, why don't you choose to accept it? For all living beings in this world, us old guys are existences akin to faith. From the very beginning, I didn't agree with this so-called new world. I don't think we should interfere too much with everything in this world. As for this so-called new world, do you really think it's a good thing? No matter what, it's already like this. Do you still want to stop it yourself? I've never thought of doing it myself, but I do hope that someone can stop it. This world doesn't belong to us old folks. It belongs to all living beings. They have the right to choose how they want to live, and we can't force them to do so. It seems like you think highly of those little fellows. Xiao Chun, Lin Yan, do you really think they can resist the origin world? You want us to compromise? Who knows? Maybe there will be a miracle. Let's see if they can survive this time. If they can't survive this time, there's no need to talk about anything else. Qiu Zhu still didn't agree with the new world. Qing Zhu didn't say anything about it. However, in his opinion, it was very difficult for Xiao Chun and Lin Yan to succeed. Even with the help of the ancient creatures like the bee slaves, it was almost impossible for them to resist the origin world. Moreover, the primogenitors were obviously serious this time. The four primogenitors had taken action together. Even with the bee slaves, it was difficult to change anything. Or rather, it was impossible to change anything. After talking to Qiu Zhu, the four primogenitors and the experts of the origin world all took action and headed to the Hongmeng world. This time, the origin world didn't want to give Xiao Chun and the others any chance. They wanted to destroy the alliance that Xiao Chun and the others had formed. While the primogenitors were taking action, everyone in the Hongmeng world was racing against time. In the end, everyone in the alliance retreated from the Hongmeng world and hid in the various universes according to the plan. After doing all this, the Hongmeng world became quiet. Xiao Chun and the others were waiting for news from the Wood Spirit. The matters of the alliance had been dealt with. The next step was to prepare to enter the origin of creation. However, there was still no news about the search for the space origin. There was no news from the Wood Spirit either. Xiao Chun and the others couldn't do anything about it. After all, they couldn't help in this matter. They could only wait for news from the Wood Spirit. Calculating the time, the origin world should have already taken action. Xiao Chun and the others should have retreated from the Hongmeng world as soon as possible. Therefore, they gathered together. Everyone was a little anxious. They didn't know when the Wood Spirit would send back news. Please collect, vote, recommend. Chapter 28:06. The matters of the alliance had been dealt with, and everyone had left the primordial world. Xiao Chun and the others could only wait for news from the Wood Spirit. The matters of the alliance had been dealt with, and everyone had left the primordial world. Xiao Chun and the others could only wait for news from the Wood Spirit. The bee slaves and Sure Song were still in the primordial world. At this moment, they had finished their work and were chatting with each other. They were all worried about the origin world's counterattack that was about to come. However, there was nothing they could do now. They could only wait patiently. Fortunately, the Wood Spirit didn't make them wait for long. Half a day later, the Wood Spirit sent a message saying that it had found the location of the space origin and told Sure Song the location. The Wood Spirit himself was with the space origin. After receiving the message from the Wood Spirit, everyone let out a sigh of relief and immediately prepared to leave. Xiao Chun had Xin Yuanling, Long Qing, and Qin Shuru with him. Lin Yan also brought Lu Bingning and the other girls. There wasn't much to pack. Mu Lingxian glanced at the Immortal Palace again and said with some fear, "I'm afraid the Immortal Palace will be destroyed when we leave this time." The Immortal Palace was the sect that Mu Lingxian had founded. He knew the Immortal Palace would be destroyed when the origin world attacked. Mu Lingxian would be lying if he said that he wasn't sad when he thought about his life's work being destroyed. Hearing this, Lin Yan patted him on the shoulder and said indifferently, "It's not just you. The sects of all of us here will probably cease to exist. There's nothing we can do about it. However, at least the foundation is preserved." "It's a blessing in disguise," said Xiao Chun. "The Immortal Palace, Sacred Palace, Cloud Palace, and everyone's sects couldn't be preserved. This was destined from the beginning unless Shao Chun and the others had the power to resist the origin world. Unfortunately, Shao Chun and the others didn't have the power to resist the origin world now. It was still unknown whether they would have the power to resist the origin world in the future. Therefore, some things that couldn't be preserved could only be given up. Mu Lingxian also knew this, so what he said just now was just his feelings. After hearing Shao Chun and Lin Yun's words, Mu Lingxian shook his head and smiled. You're right. At least the foundation is preserved. Let's go. No one knew what the outcome of going to the land of creation would be. Perhaps they would be able to break through to become a world lord and become an existence like the ancient living beings. They would have the power to fight against the primogenitors, but they might also die in the land of creation. No one could say for sure, but this was the only path they could choose. Whether they succeeded or not, there was no turning back. According to the location given by the wood spirit, Shao Chun and the others went straight to the place where the space origin was. 2 days after they left, Ancestor Qing, Ancestor Mu, and the other experts of the origin world came to the primordial world. Through the spatial black hole in the origin world, Ancestor Qing, Ancestor Mu, and the others frowned slightly. Even with their divine consciousness, they couldn't sense the existence of any experts in the origin world. Not to mention Shao Chun and the other world lords, they couldn't even sense any immortal emperor experts. Search around, Ancestor Mu said with a gloomy face. Then, the experts from the origin world began to search around the origin world. As for Ancestor Mu and the others, they went directly to the immortal palace. Everything was as good as before, but it was empty. There was no one there. Seeing this, Ancestor Mu and the others naturally guessed that Shao Chun and the others had left long ago. They were worried about the origin world's counterattack, so Shao Chun and the others had left the origin world first. Ancestor Mu's face was gloomy as he snorted coldly. Humph! This world belongs to the origin world. Where can you run to? Ancestor Mu's words were cold. Ancestor Qing frowned secretly. Obviously, he didn't agree with Ancestor Mu's words. The primogenitors were the protectors of the world, not the controllers. Therefore, Ancestor Qing didn't like Ancestor Mu's words. However, Ancestor Qing didn't refute Ancestor Mu in front of everyone. After all, Ancestor Mu had suffered a great loss in the origin world. It was understandable that he was resentful. Everyone from the Alliance had left. Even if Ancestor Qing and the others came to the origin world personally, they couldn't do anything. It felt like they had punched cotton with all their might. They couldn't use any strength at all and could only sulk in their hearts. His heart burned with anger. Ancestor Mu had also personally destroyed Immortal Palace. Just like Mu Lingxian, with their departure, Immortal Palace naturally couldn't be preserved. The ancestors wouldn't allow Immortal Palace to continue existing. After razing the entire Immortal Palace to the ground, Ancestor Mu said coldly, "Go to the Sacred Palace, Cloud Palace, and Devil Abyss. If anyone is killed, destroy them directly." He didn't stop there. Instead, he continued to send people to the Sacred Palace, Cloud Palace, and Devil Abyss. At the same time, Ancestor Mu ordered people to continue searching for Shao Chun and the others, as well as the experts in the Alliance. Once they were found, they were to be captured alive. Those who resisted were to be killed without mercy. Ancestor Qing and the other 3 primogenitors didn't stop Ancestor Mu's series of orders. Although Ancestor Mu's actions seemed a little extreme, it was the best choice. After all, since they had decided to attack the Alliance, they naturally had to eliminate them completely. Otherwise, all their efforts would be in vain. The experts in the origin world began to move. Ancestor Mu and the other 3 primogenitors didn't return to the origin world. Instead, they stayed in the Hongmeng world. As soon as they found the whereabouts of Shao Chun, Lin Yun, and the others, they would take action immediately. While the primogenitors were searching for the whereabouts of Shao Chun and the others, Shao Chun and the others finally arrived at the location of the origin of space after several days of traveling. It was a separate space. Strangely, it didn't seem to exist at all. At least, Xiao Chun and the others didn't feel that there was such a space. The primogenitors won't find this place, right? One of the world lords asked worriedly. In response, the beast's slave smiled disdainfully. Although those old things have many tricks up their sleeves, it's still impossible for them to find the space origin unless the space origin is willing. Otherwise, even if those old things take action personally, they won't be able to find this place. Please collect, vote, recommend. Chapter 2807. The primogenitors did have many tricks up their sleeves, but it was impossible for them to find the space origin. In terms of combat strength, the space origin might not be strong, but in terms of concealment, the space origin was a headache for the primogenitors. Because it was the space origin, it could construct spaces at will. Moreover, these spaces were extremely difficult to detect. Even the primogenitors would have a hard time finding it. As they spoke, the group entered the mysterious space and arrived outside a simple wooden house. At this moment, there were already two young men waiting outside the wooden house. One of them was the wood spirit. The wood spirit and the other young man stood side by side. As for the other young man's identity, Xiao Chun and the others could already guess. If it wasn't the space origin, who else could it be? Clearly, the wood spirit had already told the space origin about Xiao Chun and the others. As the space spirit boat slowly landed, the beast's slave took the initiative to say with a smile, "This place of yours is still as hard to find as before. No matter how hard it is to find it, you guys still found it," the space origin replied with a smile. To be honest, the wood spirit definitely made a great contribution to be able to find the space origin this time. If it wasn't for him, it would probably be very difficult for them to find the space origin, even with the beast slave and Song. As soon as the two of them finished speaking, the wood spirit took the initiative to step forward and said, "All right, let's cut the crap and get down to business." Now wasn't the time for idle chit-chat. How to enter the land of creation was what everyone was most concerned about. Hearing the wood spirit's words, even the beast's slave nodded with a serious expression. The group directly sat outside the wooden house. Xiao Chun and the others naturally didn't know anything about the land of creation, so they listened more to the space origin's introduction. The wood spirit had already communicated with the space origin beforehand, so now there was no need to waste time explaining the purpose of their visit. As for Xiao Chun and the others entering the land of creation, the space origin also bluntly told them that it might be very dangerous and the success rate wouldn't be too high. You are all world lords of various universes. To be honest, in the outside world, you might already be an absolute powerhouse. However, to be honest, I'm still not optimistic about entering the land of creation. However, I have to say that this is your only choice now. The wood spirit should have already told you some things about the land of creation. That's right. The primogenitors and us ancient creatures were all born in the land of creation. The primogenitors and us. First of all, when you enter the land of creation, you must abandon your physical bodies. In other words, you can only enter the land of creation in your soul state. You should know how weak you are in your soul state. Not to mention that you have to enter the land of creation, which is extremely dangerous. Furthermore, without a physical body, you will truly die if you encounter any danger in the place of creation. There will be no chance for you to be reborn. Can all of you accept the dangers of all this? Of its 16K Chinese that could only abandon their bodies and enter the place of creation. This was equivalent to cutting off all paths of retreat before they even entered the place. Once they encountered danger, the consequences were obvious. Moreover, if they didn't succeed in the place of creation, then Xiao Chun and the others would have lost their bodies for nothing. It could be said that they would either succeed or die trying. However, even then, Xiao Chun and the others still didn't have any other choice. They had to go to the origin world. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to go against the origin world. Seeing that Xiao Chun and the others still chose to enter the place of creation without hesitation despite knowing how dangerous it was, the origin of space did not say anything else. It had already said what it needed to say. Since no one had any intention of backing down, the space origin didn't say anything more. As for the way to enter the land of creation, according to the space origin, it was very simple. If you want to enter the land of creation, you can say that it's difficult, but it's also easy because the entrance to the land of creation can be said to be non-existent, but it can also be said to be everywhere. It's just that you need a special spatial passage to connect to it, and this is the soul space. The soul space was a spatial passage that only the soul could pass through. The body couldn't pass through it. The space origin could construct such a spatial passage and connect it to the land of creation. However, once they entered the soul space, Shao Chun and the others' bodies would be destroyed during the passage, and only their souls would remain. This was one of the requirements to enter the land of creation. As for whether Shao Chun and the others could succeed after entering the land of creation, it wasn't up to the origin of space, the wood spirit, or the bee slaves to help. At that time, everything would depend on their own abilities. Shao Chun, Lin Yun, Imo He, no one knows the result this time. If you can successfully come out of the land of creation, I think we can rope in more ancient creatures to join the alliance and fight against the origin world together, the wood spirit said. What the wood spirit said was true. Whether the alliance could survive or not depended on whether Shao Chun and the others could succeed this time. If they all died in the land of creation, then the wood spirit and the other ancient creatures could only continue to survive under the rule of the origin world in their own way. As for the alliance, they would probably have to disband. After all, Shao Chun and the others were the founders of the alliance. If even Shao Chun and the others died, then the wood spirit and the others would definitely not continue to join the alliance. At the same time, if Shao Chun and the others succeeded, then the wood spirit was confident that they could rope in more ancient creatures and truly blow the horn of fight against the origin world. Therefore, the final result would depend on the success of Shao Chun and the others in the land of creation. Before that, the wood spirit and the others wouldn't take any action. They could only wait for the news from Shao Chun and the others. All right, there's one more thing. The time in the land of creation is different from the outside world. Perhaps you've stayed in the land of creation for 100 years, but it's only been a month in the outside world. Perhaps you've only stayed in the land of creation for a moment, but it's already been 100 years in the outside world. No one can say for sure. It will depend on your luck. The origin of space deliberately reminded them in the end. Of course, no one could control the flow of time in the land of creation. It would depend on Shao Chun and the others' luck. Please collect, vote, recommend. Chapter 28:08. He told Shao Chun and the others all the things they needed to pay attention to in the land of creation. As for the final result, it was not something the wood spirit and the others could control. After all, even though they were ancient creatures, the land of creation was indeed a strange yet familiar place for them. He told Shao Chun and the others all the things they needed to pay attention to in the land of creation. As for the final result, it was not something the wood spirit and the others could control. After all, even though they were ancient creatures, the land of creation was indeed a strange yet familiar place for them. It was familiar because the land of creation was where ancient creatures like the wood spirit and the others were born. It was unfamiliar because they had not had any contact with the land of creation since the day they were born. Compared to ancient creatures like the wood spirit and the others who had a unique advantage, it would be more difficult for Shao Chun and the others to find the power to break through to the world lord level in the land of creation. There was nothing they could do about it. After all, Shao Chun and the others were born to become stronger. They were not born with the power of ancient creatures. There was a fundamental difference between the two. The danger of the place of creation could not be underestimated, and they could not afford to be careless. However, Shao Chun and the others were already prepared, so after hearing the words of the wood spirit and the origin of space, they nodded without much hesitation. Naturally, there was no possibility of success in this world. Shao Chun and the others were very clear about this. If they wanted to obtain the power to fight against the origin world, they naturally had to fight with everything they had. Seeing everyone nod, The space origin nodded slightly and said, "Then I will start building the soul space now. Prepare yourselves. We will depart in 2 hours." The construction of the soul space could only be completed by the space origin. While waiting, Xiao Chun, Qin Shu, and Flower Fairy sat together in a circle. No one knew what the result of this trip to the land of creation would be. However, Qin Shu said softly, "After this is over, I don't want to care about anything in this world anymore, husband." Qin Shuiro only wanted her family to be safe and sound. As for status and power, she didn't want any of those. That was why she said that. Of course, before that, everyone had to stay alive. In response, Xiao Chun smiled and held Qin Shuiru's hand. "Yes, after this is over, we will find a place to start over." Xiao Chun had the same idea. After this matter was over, Xiao Chun would no longer care about the sacred palace. He would leave it to Xiao Yao and Xiao Lao. After all, the future belonged to them. Xiao Chun preferred to accompany Qin Shuiru and live a peaceful life. Upon hearing Xiao Chen's words, Qin Shuiru gently leaned his head on Xiao Chen's shoulder. He couldn't help but recall the time when the two of them first met. Everything felt like yesterday. The images in his memory were still so clear. From the beginning at the E-Sword Pavilion to the current Sacred Palace, everything seemed to have happened yesterday. But when he thought about it carefully, it turned out that it had been so long. Along the way, he and Xiao Chun had faced dangers and sweet moments. But in the end, they overcame everything. Xiao Chun was no longer the young genius who had just joined the E-Sword Pavilion. Although Xiao Chun's appearance had not changed much at this time, Xiao Chun still looked like a handsome young man with the improvement of his cultivation. Qin Shuiru was also unparalleled in beauty. However, Xiao Chun had grown into the ruler of a part of the universe. Over the years, Qin Shuiru had experienced many things. She had become more indifferent to things like status and status. She was more concerned about accompanying Xiao Chun. While thinking, Qin Shuiru said, "Husband, do you think we will die in the land of creation this time?" "No, and even if we die, I will be with you." Xiao Chun immediately replied. Inside the mysterious space, the setting sun drew Xiao Chun, Qin Shu, and the other girls closer to each other. They leaned against each other like this, enjoying a rare moment of peace. Infinity, after all, no one knew what would happen if they entered the land of creation. Therefore, at this moment, everyone felt the warmth from each other's bodies. 2 hours passed in the blink of an eye. Just as Xiao Chun and the others were reminiscing about the past and looking forward to the future, the origin of space spoke. "Let's go." There was no time to waste. Hearing this, Xiao Chun got up first and looked at Qin Shu, Fairy of 100 Flowers, Gu Lingyao, Tian Yue, and Hongxiu with a smile. "Let's go. This is the last time. If we can survive, I promise you that I will not care about the affairs of this world in the future. I will find a place to live in seclusion. I will work from sunrise to sunset and rest. I will live a peaceful life like this." This was the first time Xiao Chun had made such a promise. Hearing this, Qin Shuiru and the others also got up with a smile. The group of people walked toward the entrance of the soul space. "Let's go. Whether we live or die depends on this. Haha, if we succeed, then we die trying. If we fail, then we will see each other in our next lives. Brother Xiao Chun, when the time comes to live in seclusion, don't forget me. I will go with you." Before entering the soul space, Lin Yun, Emo He, and Ancestor He all spoke one after another. Everyone had a feeling of cutting off all means of retreat. After all, this time, they really had to succeed or die trying. According to the wood spirit, if they failed, then they could only die in the land of creation. Following everyone's words, the wood spirit, beast slave, and Sure Song also spoke one after another. "Go. Have a safe journey. We will wait for you to come back. Be careful. Don't really die in there." Hearing the three people's words, Xiao Chun and the others bowed and bade farewell. During this period of time, Beast Slave, Sure Song, and the others had indeed helped them too much. If it weren't for Beast Slave and the others, Xiao Chun and the others probably wouldn't have been able to stop Ancestor Mu's attack last time. let alone have the opportunity to enter the land of creation. After bidding farewell, Xiao Chun walked into the soul space with Qin Shu in the other's hands. Lin Yun followed closely behind, followed by Dongfang Yun, Mo He, Ancestor He, and the other world lords. As soon as he entered the soul space, Xiao Chun immediately felt that something was different. A mysterious force was constantly stripping away his physical body. It was like a boning knife, forcibly separating the physical body from the soul. The physical body that was forcibly stripped away also vanished into thin air. Obviously, it was directly destroyed. Accompanied by such a forceful stripping, an unbearable pain also swept through Xiao Chen's body. He gritted his teeth and persevered. No wonder the Space Origin said before that even entering the land of creation was actually a test. After all, if there was no way to withstand such a forceful stripping pain, then not to mention reaching the land of creation, it would be difficult to even pass through the soul space in the end. One must know that such pain wasn't something that anyone could endure. Seeking collection, seeking monthly votes, seeking recommendation. Chapter 2809. The pain of forcefully separating one's physical body from one's soul was unimaginable. Moreover, the most maddening part was that the entire process was extremely slow. It was not done in one go, but rather it was slowly destroying one's physical body bit by bit. The pain of forcefully separating one's physical body from one's soul was unimaginable. Moreover, the most maddening part was that the entire process was extremely slow. It was not done in one go, but rather it was slowly destroying one's physical body bit by bit. As a result, the pain was naturally magnified. Therefore, although everyone could still grit their teeth and persevere in the beginning, as time passed, and they slowly watched their physical body being destroyed bit by bit while feeling the intense pain, some of them finally couldn't take it anymore. Even Gu Lingyao said with a sobbing tone, "It hurts." Among Qin, Shrew, and Hundred Flower Fairy, Gu Lingyao's personality was definitely the purest. At the same time, her state of mind was also the weakest. Most of the time, Xiao Chun treated Gu Lingyao as a little girl and had to coax her at all times. Gu Lingyao also liked the feeling of being spoiled by Xiao Chun. As the first person in Xiao Chen's group to give up, Xiao Chun took the initiative to grab Gu Lingyao's hand and said as gently as possible, "Hang in there. Don't worry, I'm here." Hearing Xiao Chen's words, Gu Lingyao's entire body lay on Xiao Chen's body. Because of the pain, her body couldn't help but tremble, but she still gritted her teeth and persevered. Gu Lingyao also knew that this was a process that she had to go through. Moreover, during this process, if she couldn't hold on, not only would her physical body be destroyed, but even her soul might be directly destroyed by this mysterious force. Then, she would be able to accompany Xiao Chun. Gu Lingyao's thoughts were very simple. If she couldn't hold on and died, then she would never be able to see Xiao Chun again. She would never be able to act coquettishly in front of Xiao Chun again. At this moment, this simple reliance became Gu Lingyao's motivation to persevere. Xiao Chun hugged Gu Lingyao tightly in her arms. At this moment, there was nothing that Xiao Chun could do. Everyone had to endure this pain, and Gu Lingyao could only rely on herself. No one else could help her. At the same time, not only Gu Lingyao, but also Qin Shu, Fairy of 100 Flowers, Tianyu, and Hong Xiu. The four girls also had silver teeth. However, they were stronger than Gu Lingyao, so they didn't say anything. Among the girls, Gu Lingyao was undoubtedly the one who relied on Xiao Chun the most. As for Xinyuan Ling and Long Qing, the two of them had suffered a lot along the way with Xiao Chun, so their willpower was naturally stronger. At this moment, the two of them didn't change much except that their faces were a little ugly. Xiao Chen's situation wasn't too bad for the time being, and Lin Yun's situation was the same. Lu Bingning and the others were also clenching their teeth and supporting her. At the same time, Lin Yuan, Lin Hu, Monk, and Daoist were also supporting her. This time, Lin Yun's group was undoubtedly the largest. Besides Xiao Chun and Lin Yun, The ones who were in the worst situation were undoubtedly Mo, he, and Jesus group. The two of them were fine, but the people who accompanied them were already beginning to be unable to hold on. With the double psychological and physical torture, one of the people on Mo, he's side was the first to be unable to hold on. He let out a blood-curdling scream and then lost his mind. His soul was also directly destroyed by the mysterious force in an instant. His whole body seemed to be directly weathered and burned, disappearing in front of everyone little by little. This was the result of not being able to hold on. Before this, the wood spirit and space origin had already warned everyone that the land of creation was extremely dangerous. Even the process of entering the land of creation was very dangerous. If it was said that everyone didn't understand how difficult it was at the beginning, then now, with the loss of someone, it was obvious that everyone had the most intuitive feeling of danger and difficulty, begging for help. And this person's death obviously wasn't the end. It was just the beginning. But Xiao Chun didn't have the time to care about that now. At this moment, Xiao Chun only hoped that nothing would happen to his side. After all, on this trip to the land of living beings, Xiao Chun wouldn't be able to accept anything happening to his big brother Xin Yuan Ling, second sister Long Qing, Qin Shu, Hunter Flower Fairy, and the others. Therefore, while enduring his own pain, Xiao Chun had to encourage Qin Shu and the other ladies. Xiao Chun didn't need to worry about Xin Yuan Ling and Long Qing because their temperaments were fine. It was especially so for Gu Ling Yao. Xiao Chun had already pulled her into his arms and kept talking to her. Ling Yao, we've agreed that once this is over, we'll find a place to live in seclusion. So you must hang in there. Gu Ling Yao's situation was the most dangerous right now, so Xiao Chun could only encourage her to hang in there. During this process, everyone's physical bodies were constantly being peeled away. At this moment, more than half of their souls were exposed. At the same time, people died one after another due to the loss of their mental state. From time to time, screams would be heard. Such screams cast a shadow over everyone's hearts. But fortunately, in the end, no one on Xiao Chen's side died. Even Gu Ling Yao gritted her teeth and persevered. But before they could rejoice, they felt a terrifying spatial turbulence spreading wildly. Moreover, at the end of the space in the distance, a white spot of light appeared. Were they about to reach the land of living beings? Looking at the white spot of light, Xiao Chen's expression turned solemn, but he still shouted immediately, "Hold on to me." The spatial turbulence was getting more and more violent. Xiao Chun didn't want to be separated from everyone when they entered the land of living beings, so he asked everyone to hold on to him. Upon hearing that, Qin Shu and the other ladies, as well as Xin Yuan Ling and Long Qing, naturally grabbed onto Xiao Chun without hesitation. Everyone held hands and was like a lonely boat in the spatial turbulence. They could only go with the flow. Because they were only spiritual bodies, they didn't have any power to resist at all. And in such a bumpy and turbulent situation, as long as they let go of their hands, they would probably be separated very quickly. But from the beginning to the end, everyone held on to each other. They didn't let go even when they encountered a violent force that knocked them out. Everyone was knocked unconscious by the spatial turbulence, and quite a number of people were directly scattered, passing through the white light one after another. As they got closer and closer, it was obvious that the white light was actually a door of light. Obviously, this was the entrance to the land of living beings. Everyone finally entered the land of living beings while they were unconscious. However, the real danger and test only began from this moment. Whether they could succeed in the end was still unknown. Please add it to your collection. Monthly vote recommended. Chapter 2810. Xiao Chen didn't know how long he had slept. When he woke up, he saw that he was lying on a green lawn. Green grass stretched as far as the eye could see. The blue sky and white clouds intersected in the sky. A gentle breeze blew past. Everything was quiet and peaceful. Coupled with the faint fragrance of grass, it made one feel relaxed and happy. Xiao Chen didn't know how long he had slept. When he woke up, he saw that he was lying on a green lawn. Green grass stretched as far as the eye could see. The blue sky and white clouds intersected in the sky. A gentle breeze blew past. Everything was quiet and peaceful. Coupled with the faint fragrance of grass, it made one feel relaxed and happy. "Is this the land of creation?" Xiao Chen murmured softly. To be honest, the scenery in front of him wasn't very beautiful. However, for some reason, it gave him a very unique feeling. A gentle breeze, green grass, blue sky, white clouds. Everything was combined so naturally. Everything seemed ordinary, but it gave him a feeling that it was extremely far away. Xiao Chen didn't sense any danger. Soon, he found Qin Shu, Fairy of 100 Flowers, and the others. Fortunately, when they entered the land of creation, Xiao Chen immediately gathered everyone together. That was why they weren't blown away by the violent spatial storm. Everyone was safe and sound. It seemed that they were only knocked unconscious by the violent spatial storm. After confirming that everyone was fine, Xiao Chen secretly heaved a sigh of relief. Then, he waited for everyone's attributes. After passing through the spiritual space, everyone was only left with their spiritual bodies. Their physical bodies were severely destroyed, so their strength was naturally weakened. However, this was a necessary condition to enter the land of creation. Unless they were existences like the primordial spirits or the primogenitors, they couldn't enter the land of creation with their physical bodies. Otherwise, it was impossible for others to do so. Not long after, Xinyuan Ling, Long Qing, and the others woke up one after another. Seeing that everyone was fine, they relaxed and took the opportunity to look at the surrounding scenery. "Husband, this place is so beautiful. Let's find a place like this to live in seclusion in the future, okay?" During this period of time, everyone had been on tenterhooks, especially after they had faced the primordial world head-on. They had felt even more pressure. Now that they were in the land of creation, they actually felt a rare moment of peace. Therefore, Qin Shuru quickly fell in love with this place. It was really beautiful here. Although there was no special scenery, it gave people a very comfortable feeling. Qin Shuru had always wanted such a life. Not only Qin Shuru, but even Gu Lingyao and Hong Xiu chimed in. "Big Sister Shuru is right. Hubby, let's find a place like this in the future. We can build a house here and a garden here for Big Sister Baihua." The two women chatted happily. It seemed that they had already planned their future. Hearing this, Xiao Chen could not help but reveal a faint smile at the corner of his mouth. Hearing these women's words, he could not help but feel a sense of longing in his heart. Indeed, it would be great if they could live like this. They wouldn't have to care about the disputes in the outside world and could live a peaceful life. Perhaps such a life would be the happiest for a family. Humans would only want to return to a peaceful life after experiencing some things or after gaining enormous power and strength. But one had to admit that everything that the young ladies said was their true thoughts, and there wasn't the slightest bit of hypocrisy. After obtaining a rare peace in the land of creation, they let down their guard. After all, everyone knew that it was impossible for the primordial ancestors to chase them to the land of creation. Therefore, everyone naturally felt safe here. But was it really safe here? While Xiao Chun and the others were speaking, all of a sudden, without any warning, Xinyuan Ling felt a sharp pain in his foot. Then he felt a powerful force coming from the bottom of his foot, and in an instant he was thrown to the ground. This sudden change put Xiao Chun and the others on guard instantly. But before they could detect anything strange, Qin Shuru, Long Qing, Gu Lingyao, and Xiao Chun were thrown to the ground one after another. Changsha, at the same time, after they fell to the ground, the green grass on the ground began to grow rapidly. Almost in the blink of an eye, countless green grasses were like sturdy iron chains that bound Xiao Chun and the others tightly. Xiao Chun and the others couldn't break free from the grass at all. Even if they used all their weapons, they still couldn't break free. These green grasses were like divine weapons that tightly bound Xiao Chun and the others' bodies. At the same time, after Xiao Chun and the others were trapped, the grassland in front of them underwent an indescribable change. At this moment, the grass on the originally beautiful and relaxing grassland actually began to move on its own. They rose from the ground, and their roots walked on the ground like a pair of legs. Not long after, they gathered around Xiao Chun and the others. Outsiders. Not only that, after gathering around Xiao Chun and the others, these green grasses could actually communicate. This stunned Xiao Chun and the others. These green grasses have spiritual intelligence. They can even speak human language. Although they didn't believe it, the truth was right in front of them. Even if Xiao Chun and the others didn't want to, they had to believe everything in front of them. How could an outsider enter this place? Then who are they? Why did they suddenly appear? And it seems like the entrance was open just now. I saw the door of light. These green grasses ignored the surprise of Xiao Chun and the others and had already begun to discuss among themselves. After a while, a green grass that looked like a leader spoke. All right, what's the use of arguing here? If you want to know the answer, why don't you just ask them directly? That's right. Why don't you just ask them directly? Hearing this, these green grasses instantly reacted. Xiao Chun and the others were speechless. Although these green grasses had spiritual intelligence, they didn't look very smart. It was such a simple question. Even if they understood, there was nothing to be proud of, right? Xiao Chun didn't sense any hostility or killing intent from these green grasses, so he chose to cooperate for the time being. Soon, the green grass that spoke earlier came in front of Xiao Chun and asked with a shaky body. Now I'll ask and you'll answer. You have to cooperate, or we'll kill you. It was an extremely naive and childish threat. Hearing this, Xiao Chun almost laughed. He was almost certain that although these green grasses had spiritual intelligence, they were definitely not high. They were only at the level of children. However, Xiao Chun was curious about these green grasses. He nodded and replied, "Okay, you can ask. I'll answer you if I know the answer." "Well, that's not bad, but you can't lie to me. Otherwise, I'll definitely be angry. At that time, you'll know how terrible the consequences are." Hearing Xiao Chun's answer, this green grass shook its head and said, obviously, it was very satisfied with Xiao Chun's answer. It was quite proud of itself. Please add it to your collection. Monthly vote recommended. Chapter 28:11. Sword Master 8 Desolations. Request for leave. Please wait for a moment. After the content has been updated, please refresh the page to receive the latest update. Chapter 28:12. Xiao Chun nodded repeatedly in the face of the threat posed by the grass. Although he didn't know why these grasses had gained sentience and didn't seem weak, Xiao Chun didn't sense any hostility from them. The most important thing was that although these grasses had spiritual intelligence and their combat strength was inferior, their personalities were very simple. They didn't seem to be scheming at all. Even when they were threatening him, they gave off a feeling of stupidity. "Look at how cooperative I am. Why don't you let me go first?" Xiao Chun said with a chuckle as he looked at the grass in front of him. Hearing this, the grass was silent for a moment before asking, "What if you run away if I let you go?" Well, it wasn't too stupid, but even so, it couldn't resist Xiao Chun's persuasion. "There are so many of you here. Where can I run to? Besides, isn't this your territory? Are you afraid that I'll run away?" "That's true. Okay, I'll let you go. But don't think about running away." With almost no effort, Xiao Chun persuaded the grass with just a few words. Then, Xiao Chun's group was naturally released and regained their freedom. Xiao Chun indeed didn't intend to run away. After all, these grasses were so simple. If he didn't ask them about the land of creation, wouldn't it be a great loss? "What's your name?" "Name?" Faced with Xiao Chun's question, the grass was stunned. Obviously, it didn't have a name at all. Perhaps from the day it gained sentience, it didn't know what a name meant. Seeing this, Xiao Chun said with a smile, "A name is what everyone calls themselves. It should be something they're born with. Don't you have one?" Hearing this, the grass said hesitantly, "It really didn't have a name. In that case, why don't we call you Little Green?" Xiao Chun directly took the initiative and even gave the grass a name. Hearing this, the grass was stunned at first, but then it happily agreed. Obviously, it liked the name Xiao Chun gave it, but on the surface, it still said proudly, "Since that's the case, I'll reluctantly agree." In this regard, Xiao Chun naturally wouldn't argue with it. He smiled and Little Green asked, "Who are you? Why are you here? And what's your purpose in coming here?" Little Green was obviously most curious about the identity of Xiao Chun's group. In this regard, Xiao Chun answered truthfully and briefly told Little Green about the outside world. Obviously, Little Green knew nothing about the outside world. Not only that, but it was also full of curiosity. Since the day it was born, Little Green and the others had been living in the land of creation and had no contact with the outside world at all. Perhaps before meeting Xiao Chun, Little Green didn't know that there was such a big world outside the land of creation. While listening to Xiao Chun's narration, Little Green kept chiming in excitedly like a happy child. Xiao Chun smiled wryly, while Qin Shru and the other girls covered their mouths and chuckled. Such a fierce-looking grass was indeed interesting. Not only Little Green, but the countless grass in the surroundings were also completely attracted by Xiao Chun's narration. In their opinion, the outside world was really too exciting, unlike the land of creation where everything was so boring. That's right, everything about the place of creation was boring in the eyes of Little Qing and the others. Therefore, even after Xiao Chun had finished speaking, Little Qing still wanted to continue. The outside world is really interesting. It's not like this place at all. It's so boring. Haha, the so-called interesting is because you haven't seen the cruelty of the outside world. Just like I said earlier, we're here to stop all of that from happening, Xiao Chun said with a smile. Little Green was obviously unable to fully understand Xiao Chun's meaning. However, it still pretended to be profound and wanted to pretend that it could understand Xiao Chun's words. Xiao Chun was amused by Little Green when he saw this. This fellow's character was really interesting. However, since even an ordinary grass could give birth to intelligence and possess a cultivation that wasn't weaker than the ancestor realm, Xiao Chun was also full of hope for the land of creation. That's right, Little Green's strength was comparable to an ancestor realm expert. Moreover, it was an extremely ordinary little blade of grass. Even so, it had still given birth to intelligence in the place of creation and possessed an extraordinary cultivation. It was no wonder that the wood spirit and ancestor Chio said that the land of creation was the creator of everything. Even a pig could become an expert if it lived in the land of creation for a long time. These words were indeed true. Little Green was the most direct example. After a conversation, Little Green had obviously let down its guard against Xiao Chun. It was really a simple-minded fellow. Xiao Chun also began to chat with Little Green and asked about the land of creation. However, the result still made Xiao Chun feel a little helpless. Although this fellow had been living in the land of creation, it didn't know much about the land of creation. It had almost never left this plane. It had always lived on this plane. As for other places, Little Green had almost never been there. Therefore, it naturally didn't know the situation of other places in the land of creation. He couldn't get any useful information from Little Green. Xiao Chun also asked about the whereabouts of Lin Yun and the others, but Little Green still said that it didn't know. However, what was certain was that everyone had split up. If Lin Yun and the others had landed on the same plane as Xiao Chun, Xiao Qing would definitely know. After all, this plane was their territory. Even the slightest movement in the wind would not be able to escape Xiao Qing's eyes. Since Little Green and the others only found Xiao Chun and the others, it meant that Lin Yun and the others were definitely not here. Perhaps they were washed away by the spatial turbulence. In this regard, although Xiao Chun was helpless, there was nothing he could do. Since they were scattered, they could only act separately. Besides, Xiao Chun wasn't too worried about Lin Yun and the others. After all, everyone's strength wasn't weak. Since they could become world lords, they had experienced countless dangers. When facing danger, their reactions were definitely not comparable to ordinary people. Therefore, there was no need to worry too much. Now, It was most important to rush to the center of the land of creation as soon as possible to seek the heaven and earth spirit that could help them improve their life level. Brothers, I took a day off yesterday. I'm really sorry. I'll make up for it today. This is the first update. There's more to come. Thank you for your support. Chapter 28:13. The heaven and earth spirit was the ultimate goal of Xiao Qin's group. Only the heaven and earth spirit could elevate Xiao Qin's group to the level of life and allow them to reach the heights of the ancient creatures and ancestors. The heaven and earth spirit was the ultimate goal of Xiao Qin's group. Only the heaven and earth spirit could elevate Xiao Qin's group to the level of life and allow them to reach the heights of the ancient creatures and ancestors. Of course, the wood spirit told Xiao Qin all of this. However, even though the wood spirit introduced the heaven and earth spirit in detail, he didn't know where exactly it was located in the land of creation and what it looked like. The heaven and earth spirit possessed spiritual intelligence, and its location and appearance were also different. According to the wood spirit, the heaven and earth spirit could change its appearance and move freely. Of course, it was also certain that it couldn't leave the land of creation. Therefore, the heaven and earth spirit must be somewhere in Chuan province. As for where exactly it was, Xiao Qin's group had to search for it themselves. The wood spirit didn't know much about it either. Their goal was the heaven and earth spirit. And now, Xiao Qin couldn't get too much information from Little Green. He had the thought of leaving. After all, he didn't have much time to waste here. Little Green, I have to go. At this thought, Xiao Qin looked at Little Green and said, even though Little Green's attitude toward Xiao Qin's group wasn't great, after the conversation, Little Green's naive personality seemed to treat Xiao Qin as a friend. At the very least, it had let down its guard. Therefore, after hearing that Xiao Qin was leaving, Little Green's attitude wasn't the same as before. You're leaving already? Yes, we don't have much time. We have to find the heaven and earth spirit as soon as possible, so... Xiao Qin said somewhat apologetically. Even though Little Green was just an ordinary grass, since it was born with spiritual intelligence, it was also a life. Besides, after chatting with Little Green, Xiao Qin didn't dislike it. Its naive nature made Xiao Qin feel comfortable talking with it. If it were any other time, perhaps Xiao Qin would have chatted with it for a while. But now he definitely couldn't. They hadn't found the whereabouts of the heaven and earth spirit, and Xiao Qin didn't have too much time to waste. Upon seeing this, even though Little Green was reluctant, it didn't stop Xiao Qin. It knew that Xiao Qin had things to do and couldn't stay here forever. Green nodded and got ready to send Xiao Qin off. However, at this moment, the ground suddenly trembled slightly. Sensing this, Little Green and the surrounding grass were all stunned. Then, one by one, they said as if they were facing a great enemy. Is that the Wood Spirit clan? Soon, the grass rushed into the distance. Little Green also said to Xiao Qin, I wanted to send you guys off, but now I'm not used to it. Those bad guys from the Wood Spirits are here again. You guys be careful. After saying that, without waiting for Xiao Qin's reply, Little Green also commanded the grass to rush into the distance. It was obvious that it was going to face the enemy. Although he didn't know what the Wood Spirits were, judging from Little Green's behavior, perhaps they were mortal enemies. In this land of creation, there was no lack of fighting. Seeing Little Green leave, Xiao Qin frowned slightly. After a moment of silence, he whispered softly, There's no hurry. Forget it. As he spoke, Xiao Qin looked at Xin Yuanling, Long Qing, and the others. Seeing this, everyone naturally understood what Xiao Qin meant. After so many years, everyone naturally knew what Xiao Qin was thinking. Everyone had a good impression of Little Green. Although it was just a grass, its pure nature made it hard to dislike it. In the eyes of Xiao Qin and the others, Little Green was just like a child, pure and cute. But putting this aside, as the leader of the grass, Little Green really acted like a leader at a critical moment. At least just now, Little Green didn't have the slightest intention of backing down. Therefore, after seeing Little Green leave, Xiao Qin decided to help without much hesitation. Nodding, Xianyuan Ling smiled and said, "Indeed, it's not a big deal." Several people agreed with Xiao Chen's decision. Seeing this, Xiao Chun smiled and then led Qin Shu, Xianyuan Ling, and the others in the direction where Little Green and the others left. Soon, they arrived at the place of the battle. At this time, the grass led by Little Green was fiercely fighting with dozens of towering trees. These trees had also developed spiritual intelligence and were stronger. However, Little Green and the others had an absolute advantage in terms of numbers. There were only dozens of wood spirits, but Little Green and the others had tens of thousands of them. Even so, the battle was still very tense. After all, in terms of individual strength, Little Green and the others obviously couldn't be compared with these wood spirits. This was not difficult to see from the grass being directly killed and trampled on. These grasses, which had gained sentience, would naturally die. Furthermore, Xiao Chen was able to cast a spell with his keen senses. When the grasses died, wisps of green light would seep into the bodies of the wood spirits. It was as if they had absorbed the original power of these grass. Every time this happened, these wood spirits would show a look of enjoyment. This was a battle that broke out because of plundering. It seemed that the reason these wood spirits attacked Little Green and the others was very likely to seize their power to strengthen themselves. With this guess in mind, Xiao Chen also saw Little Green's figure at this time. As the leader, Little Green's strength was naturally the strongest among these grass. At this time, it was bearing the brunt of the battle and fighting fiercely with the strongest wood spirit. Unfortunately, Little Green's strength was indeed weak. It was only equivalent to an ancestor-level warrior, while the wood spirit had the cultivation and combat power of a world lord. Therefore, in terms of one-on-one combat, Little Greenie was definitely at a disadvantage. Fortunately, Little Greenie had a lot of helpers. Although Little Greenie and the others were able to hold on for the time, being with their advantage in numbers, the grass was dying at every moment. This also showed the cruelty of the battle. They could only use their lives to make up for the gap in combat power. This might be the biggest disadvantage of Little Green and the others, but there was no other way. Little Green and the others' bodies were originally extremely ordinary grass. Even if they had developed spiritual intelligence, because they were born in the land of creation, Little Green and the others were still the weakest existences. This was destined to birth, just like Xiao Chun and the other ancestors. No matter how hard Xiao Chun and the others worked, they could not surpass the ancestors unless they could achieve a sublimation of life. It was very unfair, but there was no other way. Many things in this world were destined at birth. There was no choice and no way to change it. Please collect, monthly vote, recommend. Chapter 28:14. Xiao Chen watched as Little Qing and the wood spirit battled fiercely. It was obvious that Little Qing was being completely suppressed. For some reason, Xiao Chen seemed to see his own shadow in Little Qing. Xiao Chen watched as Little Qing and the wood spirit battled fiercely. It was obvious that Little Qing was being completely suppressed. For some reason, Xiao Chen seemed to see his own shadow in Little Qing. It was just like when he faced the ancestors. It wasn't that he didn't work hard enough, but that many things were destined from the moment he was born. If Xiao Chen had the unique advantages of the ancestors, Xiao Chen wouldn't be afraid of them. Unfortunately, there were no ifs in this world. From the moment he was born, Xiao Chen was destined to be an ordinary person. Although Xiao Chen had finally reached a height that ordinary people couldn't reach through his unremitting efforts, Xiao Chen was still inferior to the ancestors who were born with endless advantages. Take Little Qing, for example. If it wasn't a blade of grass, but a towering tree, perhaps the current situation would be completely different. Without thinking too much, Xiao Chen immediately said to Xianyuan Ling and the others, "Let's attack together and take down the strongest with spirit first." Moreover, Xiao Chen and the others were all in spirit form, so their battle prowess was greatly weakened. At this time, it was naturally best to capture the leader first. Helping Little Qing take down the strongest with spirit was the best choice. Xianyuan Ling, Long Qing, and Qin Shu all nodded when they heard Xiao Chen's words. Then, Xiao Chun took the lead and charged towards the wood spirit that Little Qing was fighting. Little Qing, who was already on the verge of collapse, suddenly saw Xiao Chun charge out. It asked in surprise, "Why did you come back?" "I came back to help you." Hearing this, Xiao Chun gave a simple reply. Then, without hesitation, he made his move and clashed head-on with the wood spirit. No matter what, Xiao Chun was still in existence at the level of a world lord. With him taking on the wood spirit's attack head-on, the pressure on Little Qing was naturally reduced by a lot. Not to mention, there was also Xianyuan Ling, Long Qing, and the others helping her. Xiao Qin's return surprised Little Qing. Initially, it was just a little curious about Xiao Chun and this group of outsiders. After chatting, Little Qing didn't have any special thoughts. However, it obviously didn't expect Xiao Chun to return and even help it. It didn't know the concept of friends. After all, in the land of creation, Little Qing didn't know what friends were. In its life, it only had the grass around it as its companions. At this moment, in Little Qing's eyes, Xiao Chun seemed to have become much closer. It was as if he was one of its own kind. At least, he was worthy of its trust. Xiao Chun didn't know what Little Qing was thinking. At this time, Xiao Chun was fighting fiercely with the wood spirit. Without a physical body, Xiao Chun was indeed unable to exert his full combat power. However, even so, Xiao Chun was still fighting back and forth with the wood spirit. Although it seemed that Little Qing was indeed at a disadvantage, it was far from being defeated. Long Qing, Xianyuan Ling, and the others were also very smart. They didn't fight with the wood spirit directly. Instead, they kept looking for opportunities to launch sneak attacks. After being together for so many years, Xiao Chun, Xianyuan Ling, and the others naturally had a tacit understanding. Very good. Everyone knew how to fight at this time. The task of the main attack was naturally handed over to Xiao Chun. Xiao Chun withstood all the pressure from the wood spirit. Xianyuan Ling and the others continued to attack, exhausting the wood spirit's physical strength. "Who are you?" In the midst of the battle, the wood spirit shouted coldly. Its voice was like that of an old man, hoarse and old. Hearing this, Xiao Chun replied faintly, "I'm just an unrelated person. However, I'm this little guy's friend." "Friend?" Hearing this, Little Qing was stunned. It didn't know what a friend meant, but it sounded like a good thing. For this person who suddenly interfered and ruined its plan, the wood spirit was naturally incomparably angry. If Xiao Chun did intervene, then this time, it would obviously be the same as before. It would be a complete victory and plunder the most abundant energy. That's right. The grudge between the Wood Spirit clan and Little Qing had existed for a long time. Almost every once in a while, the two sides would fight just like now. However, every time, the Wood Spirit clan would be the first to attack. As for the purpose of the Wood Spirit clan, it was very simple. That was the energy of Little Qing and the others. It could be seen that after every blade of grass was killed, these wood spirits will be able to absorb a green energy. It was different from spiritual energy, but perhaps this was what these wood spirits needed. It was also because of this that the Wood Spirit clan had never thought of eliminating Little Qing and the others. After all, if they kept Little Qing and the others, they could come and plunder a batch of energy every once in a while. It was like a flock of sheep in a pen. They wouldn't directly kill you, but from time to time, they would come and mess with you. Xiao Chun had already guessed that these wood spirits wanted the green energy, but he still said, "Stop. With us here, I'm afraid you won't succeed in a few days." Xiao Chun didn't have a way to completely solve this matter, nor did he have that much time. However, since he saw it, he naturally had to stop it. As for what would happen in the future, that wasn't something Xiao Chun could deal with. After all, he couldn't stay here forever. Hearing Xiao Chun's words, the wood spirit was obviously unmoved. "Stop. How could that be possible?" The wood spirit clan needed this energy. If there wasn't enough energy, then they wouldn't be able to survive. That was all. Therefore, they had to plunder enough energy. In other words, they had to kill enough grass to maintain their own survival. Therefore, after hearing Xiao Chun's words, the wood spirit didn't hesitate at all and said coldly, "Stop. Do you think that's possible? It obviously had no intention of stopping. In this regard, Xiao Chun wasn't surprised. He just shook his head slightly and said, "Then I'll offend you." Since the soft approach didn't work, he naturally had to use the hard approach. After saying that, Xiao Chun moved his thoughts, and the dustless sword directly appeared in his hand. At the same time, the sword realm was instantly activated and directly enveloped the wood spirit. For a time, the terrifying power of the sword realm crazily suppressed the strength of the wood spirit. Feeling Xiao Chen's strange attack method, the wood spirit was shocked. What was going on with this method? Why could it suppress its strength? Being in the land of creation, it naturally didn't know about the sword realm. It was also the first time it came into contact with such a power. After the sword realm was activated, Xiao Chun didn't have any intention of stopping. He directly slashed out with his sword. His strongest attack, the Emperor's sword, was directly displayed. The terrifying sword edge slashed across the sky and went straight for the wood spirit. It seemed that he wanted to kill it with a single slash. Please add it to your collection. Monthly votes recommended. Chapter 28:15. In the face of Xiao Chen's sword, the wood spirit did not dare to be careless because it felt a strong murderous intent and extreme threat from the sword. It had to admit that Xiao Chen's sword was enough to kill it. In the face of Xiao Chen's sword, the wood spirit did not dare to be careless because it felt a strong murderous intent and extreme threat from the sword. It had to admit that Xiao Chen's sword was enough to kill it. Therefore, for a moment, the wood spirit focused all its attention on Xiao Chun. It cannot be helped. Compared to Little Qing, Xian Yuanling, and the others, Xiao Chun gave it a more dangerous feeling. Naturally, he became an existence that it had to deal with all its strength. Countless branches grew wildly and quickly formed a huge wood shield in front of the wood spirit. Xiao Chun had never seen such a method before. After gaining sentience, these wood spirits seemed to be able to grow their own bodies at will. It was the same when they were fighting Little Qing and the others. The Emperor's sword slammed into the wood shield. The wood spirit's wood shield was extremely tough. In the end, it successfully blocked the attack of Xiao Chen's Emperor's sword. However, even though his attack had been blocked, Xiao Chun was not the least bit annoyed. Instead, he smiled. The wood spirit did not understand what this meant at first. His attack had been blocked, so why was Xiao Chun so happy about it? But soon it understood, because when it blocked Xiao Chen's attack, behind it, Xin Yuanling, Long Qing, and Qin Shu's attacks came as scheduled. Because its attention was almost all attracted by Xiao Chun, the wood spirit was almost defenseless against the attacks of Xin Yuanling and the others. Xin Yuanling and the others were very smart. The target of their attacks was actually behind the wood spirit. It might be able to block the attack of one person, but in the face of the joint attack of several people, the wood spirit was instantly injured. It did not have the slightest ability to fight back. All the attacks hit, and the wood spirit was immediately blasted away. Its huge body directly soared into the air. The terrifying power directly blasted a big hole in the wood spirit's body. Although it was unknown whether these wood spirits could be killed, in the face of such damage, no matter how strong its recovery ability was, it would not feel good, let alone recover quickly. From the very beginning, Xiao Chun did not expect his attack to have any effect. After all, he did not have a physical body, and his combat power was not at its peak. Furthermore, the wood spirit was not weak, either. A simple attack was enough to injure him. It was a very difficult thing to do. However, this wood spirit would never have thought that Xiao Chun, who was the strongest among them, was just a feint. The ones who were really prepared to give it a fatal blow were actually Xin Yuanling, Long Qing, and the others. It cannot be helped. Everyone's tacit understanding was too strong. They did not need to communicate at all to understand each other. Xin Yuanling and Long Qing naturally knew what Xiao Chun was thinking. So when Xiao Chun attacked, everyone was already prepared to attack. Their cooperation could be said to be flawless. They did not give the wood spirit any time to dodge or defend. One attack was enough to severely injure the wood spirit. As the wood spirit was seriously injured by Xiao Chun and the other wood spirits on the scene were stunned for a moment. It cannot be helped. Who asked this wood spirit to be their leader? It was also the strongest. But now, in the blink of an eye, it was seriously injured. And from the looks of it, it was obviously not lightly injured. It fell heavily from the sky. Before the wood spirit could get up, Xiao Chun had already appeared in front of it. The tip of his sword was directly in front of it. He said with a calm expression, "Do you still want to fight?" As long as Xiao Chun was willing, he could casually attack again and continue to injure it. Hearing Xiao Chun's words, the wood spirit was unwilling to accept it. However, it could only look at Xiao Chun angrily. You have an unfair advantage. There's nothing unfair about it. It's fine as long as I can win." Xiao Chun did not feel that there was anything wrong with his method. It was not an arena. Who said that one had to fight alone? After saying that, Xiao Chun did not wait for the wood spirit to reply and continued to ask, "Are you going to stop now?" In the face of Xiao Chun's threat, the wood spirit finally chose to stop. It had no choice. It had been seriously injured by Xianyuan Ling and the others. If it continued to fight, it would very likely die here. Moreover, Xiao Chun did not show much intention to kill it. Therefore, the wood spirit made the wisest choice. After everyone stopped, Xiao Chun looked at the wood spirit and asked, "Did you attack here just to steal the green energy?" It had long seen that the wood spirit wanted the green energy. In response, the wood spirit asked, "Yes. What's the use of the green energy? Can it increase your strength?" "No, we wanted to save Grandpa Tree." It was not something to increase one's cultivation or battle strength. It was to save people. Under Xiao Chun's questioning, the wood spirit quickly told the truth. In fact, the wood spirit clan did not only have them. Within the wood spirit clan, there was a wood spirit. It was said that it had existed for the longest time and was also the ancestor of all wood spirits. The clan members affectionately called it Grandpa Tree. However, because its lifespan was almost exhausted, Grandpa Tree was almost on the verge of death. The green energy in Little Green and the others' bodies could replenish Grandpa Tree's vitality. As long as Grandpa Tree was infused with this energy regularly, it could help Grandpa Tree extend its life. Therefore, the Wood Spirit clan would attack Little Green and the others every once in a while in order to steal the green energy to extend Grandpa Tree's life. However, this time, they did not expect to be stopped by Xiao Chun and the others. Otherwise, based on their previous experience, Little Green and the others would definitely not be able to stop the Wood Spirit clan. Moreover, the Wood Spirit clan would not kill Little Green and the others. As long as they obtained enough green energy, they would leave and come back again. It was not to increase their strength, but to save people. Hearing this, Xiao Chen's heart trembled slightly. If this wood spirit was telling the truth, and this so-called Grandpa Tree had lived for a very long time, then it must be very familiar with this place of creation. If that was the case, did it know about the spirit of heaven and earth? Or rather, how to find the spirit of heaven and earth? For a moment, Xiao Chun was a little tempted. However, judging from their actions just now, it seemed unlikely that these wood spirits would take him to see Grandpa Tree. This was because there was obviously hostility between the two sides. Moreover, these wood spirits respected Grandpa Tree so much. How could they let him see Grandpa Tree? He had to think a way to see Grandpa Tree. At the same time, he began to think of a countermeasure. Please add it to your collection. Monthly vote recommended. Chapter 28:16. Grandpa Tree had existed for many years and knew many things about the land of creation. In any case, according to this wood spirit, Grandpa Tree was an omniscient and omnipotent existence. The entire wood spirit race worshipped and respected Grandpa Tree very much. For a moment, Xiao Chen also had the idea of meeting this old tree. After all, an existence like it must have a better understanding of the land of creation. Maybe he could get some useful information from it. However, it seemed that it would not be easy to meet Grandpa Tree because these wood spirits were obviously very wary of him and the others. With their respect for Grandpa Tree, If he wanted to force a meeting with Grandpa Tree, they would probably not hesitate to fight him to the death. If force did not work, he could only use a soft approach. Soon, Xiao Chun thought of a way. Moreover, he had something that the land of creation did not have, and that was medicinal pills. That's right, there were no medicinal pills in the land of creation. After all, there were no warriors here, let alone alchemists. Xiao Chun just happened to have medicinal pills that could be used to increase one's lifespan. Although these medicinal pills were expensive, at Xiao Chun's level, they did not have much meaning. If he could use these medicinal pills to increase the abilities of the old tree, it would be a good idea for both sides to cooperate and take what they needed. Thinking of this, Xiao Chun also said bluntly to the wood spirit in front of him, "I want to see your Grandpa Tree. I have some things to ask it." Impossible. Sure enough, after hearing Xiao Chun's words, the wood spirit immediately replied excitedly. It even looked like it wanted to fight to the death with Xiao Chun. What a joke! How could it allow Xiao Chun to hurt Grandpa Tree? Xiao Chun had already expected this wood spirit's reaction, so he was not surprised. Regardless of its exposure, he said indifferently, "I may have a way to increase the lifespan of your Grandpa Tree for a very long time. At least 100 years shouldn't be a problem. This way, you won't have to come here to plunder the green energy at all times. All I want is to ask a few questions. We both get what we need, and you won't lose out. Most importantly, I can solve your most troublesome problem." Xiao Chun's voice was very calm, without any hint of threat. Hearing this, the wood spirit hesitated. Increasing Grandpa Tree's lifespan was a huge matter for the wood spirit race. Now that Xiao Chun said that he had a way to increase Grandpa Tree's lifespan by 100 years, how could it not be tempted? One had to know that every time they came to snatch the green energy, they could only increase Grandpa Tree's lifespan by a year. Sometimes, it could even increase his lifespan by a few months. That was why the wood spirits kept attacking Little Qing and the others. If Xiao Chun could really increase Grandpa Tree's lifespan by 100 years in one go, then the wood spirit race would not have to worry about Grandpa Tree for a very long time. This was indeed an irresistible temptation. Moreover, Xiao Chun only wanted to ask Grandpa Tree a few questions. For the wood spirit race, there was nothing to lose. The only thing that worried the wood spirit was that Xiao Chun wanted to harm Grandpa Tree. It was afraid that Xiao Chun would hurt Grandpa Tree. If that was really the case, then it would become a sinner of the wood spirit race. On one hand, it was worried. On the other hand, it was an irresistible temptation. For a moment, the wood spirit fell into a dilemma. However, obviously did not know that Xiao Chun's 100 years was actually a conservative estimate. After all, with the elixirs he had, even an ordinary person could live for at least 400 to 500 years. However, Xiao Chun did not know much about the wood spirit race, so he could only make a conservative estimate. Seeing that the wood spirit had fallen silent, Xiao Chun said indifferently, "Anyway, you won't lose anything. When I see Grandpa Tree, you can also send someone to protect me. I don't care. That way, you don't have to worry about me hurting Grandpa Tree." Xiao Chun continued to bluff, but he did not lie. After all, it was not a secret that he asked Grandpa Tree. It was not a big deal if the wood spirit race heard it. However, after hearing Xiao Chun's words, the wood spirit was stunned. If that was really the case, then it was not impossible to agree. In any case, it was only worried about Grandpa Tree's safety. However, if it could send someone to protect Grandpa Tree, then it would not be impossible for this guy in front of it to meet Grandpa Tree. It had to be said that Xiao Chun's words completely moved the wood spirit. It could not be helped because it was too tempting. After staring at Xiao Chun for a while, the wood spirit finally opened its mouth and asked, "Can you really increase Grandpa Tree's lifespan by 100 years? I'm 80% sure, but I'll have to try to know the specifics. However, no matter what, you won't lose anything, right?" Hearing this, Xiao Chun said seriously. After all, who knew if the elixir would have any effect on these wood spirits? However, if it was only an elixir that could increase vitality, perhaps it would have some effect. He just did not know how effective it would be. After hearing Xiao Chun's words, the wood spirit finally agreed to Xiao Chun's request after discussing with the other wood spirits. However, just as Xiao Chun said, when Xiao Chun and Grandpa Tree met, they had to send someone to protect Grandpa Tree's safety. In this regard, Xiao Chun naturally did not refuse. So be it if they were present. Seeing that Xiao Chun agreed without any hesitation, the Wood Spirit clan also let down some of their guard. The previous battle naturally stopped after this agreement was reached. After all, if Xiao Chun could really increase Grandpa Tree's lifespan by 100 years, then for a long time, the Wood Spirit clan would probably not attack Little Qing and the others again. After all, it was meaningless. After everything was settled, Xiao Chun and the others prepared to follow the Wood Spirits back to the Wood Spirit clan. However, before they left, Little Qing suddenly looked for Xiao Chun and said, "You going to the Wood Spirit clan?" "Yes, if we succeed this time, you'll probably be peaceful for a long time in the future." Hearing this, Xiao Chun said with a smile, "Yes, thank you, but I also want to go with you." Little Qing expressed that she also wanted to go with Xiao Chun and the others. Hearing this, Xiao Chun was stunned and then said somewhat helplessly, "Why would you go? We have important matters to attend to in the land of creation, and we're destined not to stay here for long. There's no point in you following us." Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. End of chapter. Chapter 28:17. Xiao Chun naturally disagreed with Little Qing's request to travel with them. After all, they had matters to attend to, so why would they bring Little Qing along? Moreover, if they succeeded in the end, Xiao Chun and the others wouldn't be able to return. They would definitely leave the place of creation directly. Xiao Chun naturally disagreed with Little Qing's request to travel with them. After all, they had matters to attend to, so why would they bring Little Qing along? Moreover, if they succeeded in the end, Xiao Chun and the others wouldn't be able to return. They would definitely leave the place of creation directly. After all, there were still many things waiting for Xiao Chun and the others in the outside world, so Xiao Chun and the others naturally didn't have much time to waste in the place of creation. However, Little Qing said, "I just want to go out and have a look. I haven't left this plane for so many years. You don't have to worry about me. If you want to leave, I can come back on my own." As soon as Little Qing said this, Xiao Chun was a little embarrassed. However, Little Qing wasn't telling the truth. The reason why it insisted on following Xiao Chun was that it liked the feeling of being with Xiao Chun. In particular, when it recalled Xiao Chun calling it a friend, Little Qing couldn't forget it for a long time. Therefore, Little Qing followed its heart and wanted to be with Xiao Chun. In the face of Little Qing's expectation and pleading, and even repeatedly promising that it would definitely not drag Xiao Chun and the others down, let alone waste Xiao Chun's time, in the end, Xiao Chun could only nod helplessly. "Okay, then let's go together." In Xiao Chun's opinion, Little Qing was just a child who was very interested in the outside world. It was rare for it to have a chance to go out and have a look. It was just like how Xiao Yao and Xiao Lao always wanted to go out of the sacred palace when they were young. After getting Xiao Chun's approval, Little Qing happily jumped onto Xiao Chun's shoulder. It was not heavy at all, so Xiao Chun just let it lie on his shoulder. Little Qing liked Xiao Chun very much, but she was not interested in Xianyuan Ling and the others. Even when Qin Shiru and Fairy of 100 Flowers wanted to hug Little Qing refused and only wanted to stay with Xiao Chun. Gu Lingyao and Hong Xiu were naturally jealous, but Xiao Chun didn't say anything. When everyone left with the Wood Spirits, Xiao Chun didn't realize that after Little Green left, the grass in front of him seemed to have lost its power in an instant and returned to its normal appearance. The entire plain also returned to its calm state, as if nothing had happened. Xiao Chun didn't realize this because it happened after he left. Following the Wood Spirits all the way out of the plain, Xiao Chun and the others soon saw a forest in the distance. Looking from afar, they didn't see anything, but when Xiao Chun and the others walked closer, they realized that this wasn't a forest at all. It was just a giant tree that reached the sky after a few years. A single tree made a forest. This was what they meant. Around this giant tree, there were many similar Wood Spirits. When they saw Xiao Chun and the others arrive, they all showed vigilant expressions. The wood spirit in charge of leading Xiao Chun here found the leader of the wood spirit clan and said, "These people said that they have a way to increase Grandpa Tree's lifespan. I think we can give it a try." He didn't waste any time and directly explained the purpose of Xiao Chun and the others. Hearing this, the leader of the Wood Spirit clan also came in front of Xiao Chun and the others and reminded them that they were much bigger than ordinary wood spirits. Of course, compared to this giant tree in front of them, there was still no comparison. The difference was simply too great. "You're outsiders?" The leader of the Wood Spirit clan was obviously experienced and knowledgeable. At a glance, he could tell that Xiao Chun and the others were from the outside world. In this regard, Xiao Chun didn't have anything to hide. He nodded and admitted generously. Seeing this, the leader of the Wood Spirit clan continued to ask, "How do you want to increase your lifespan?" Hearing this, Xiao Chun didn't waste any time. He directly took out a pill and handed it to the leader of the Wood Spirit clan. Then he said, "This is a pill. You can feel the power in it. I think it shouldn't be a problem to increase your lifespan." This pill wasn't simple. If placed on an ordinary person, one pill could increase their lifespan by at least 100 years. After receiving the pill, the leader of the Wood Spirit clan also carefully sensed the energy in the pill. After confirming that this pill wasn't harmless, he still shook his head and said, "It's really good. However, it's a pity that if used on Grandpa Tree, I'm afraid it can only increase his lifespan by 10 years. A pill that could increase an ordinary person's lifespan by 100 years could only increase Grandpa Tree's lifespan by 100 years. In this regard, Xiao Chun wasn't surprised. It was just that the Wood Spirit clan's lifespan was greater. Therefore, although the effects of this pill didn't change, the increase in lifespan was much less. This was like the size of a person's appetite. For the same food, a person with a large appetite could only eat for a day, while a person with a small appetite could eat for 2 or 3 days. However, Xiao Chun had more than one pill on him. Therefore, he wasn't afraid of consuming it. Since one pill could only increase lifespan by 10 years, then wouldn't 10 pills be able to increase lifespan by 100 years? After confirming that Xiao Chen's pill was effective, the leader of the Wood Spirit clan fulfilled his previous agreement and allowed Xiao Chun to meet Grandpa Tree. Of course, the other members of the Wood Spirit clan also had to be around to ensure Grandpa Tree's safety. In this regard, Xiao Chun nodded without any objections. Seeing this, the leader of the Wood Spirit clan said, "Come with me." Along the way, the leader of the Wood Spirit clan led the way. However, halfway through, he suddenly asked, "Are you here for the spirits of heaven and earth? You know about the spirits of heaven and earth?" Xiao Chun didn't expect the leader of the Wood Spirit clan to have guessed the purpose of their visit. He couldn't help but ask in return. If he could get some information about the spirits of heaven and earth from the leader of the Wood Spirit clan, it would definitely be a pleasant surprise. Unfortunately, Xiao Chen's idea was soon shattered. "I've heard of it, but I've never seen it in so many years. The existence of the spirits of heaven and earth is like a legend even to us. However, Grandpa Tree has existed for a long time, so he should know something. No wonder you want to see Grandpa Tree in person." The leader of the Wood Spirit clan quickly guessed the purpose of Xiao Chun and the others to see Grandpa Tree. After all, if they wanted to ask about the spirits of heaven and earth, asking Grandpa Tree was definitely the best choice. This was because in the entire land of creation, Grandpa Tree could be said to be one of the earliest life forms to be born. He definitely knew something about the spirits of heaven and earth. He might even have seen the spirits of heaven and earth in person. Who knew? Hearing the leader of the Wood Spirit clan's words, Xiao Chun became even more excited. 10 pills that could increase lifespan, it was a good use. Even though each of these pills was incomparably precious and could be said to be priceless in the outside world, compared to the information about the spirits of heaven and earth, they were nothing. Please add, please vote, please recommend. Chapter 28:18. They followed the Wood Spirit clan all the way to the bottom of the towering ancient tree. Although Xiao Qin's group already knew the size of the ancient tree from afar, they were still shocked when they actually arrived in front of the ancient tree. They followed the Wood Spirit clan all the way to the bottom of the towering ancient tree. Although Xiao Qin's group already knew the size of the ancient tree from afar, Xiao Qin's group was still shocked when they actually arrived in front of the ancient tree. This tree was simply ridiculously huge. Even its branches were comparable to those uncle's tree trunks, and its height was comparable to a mountain peak. They really didn't know how long this ancient tree had existed. Facing the ancient tree, the Wood Spirit clan's group was incomparably respectful. After the Wood Spirit clan's group saluted, the ancient tree also emitted an old voice. "What's the matter, Grandpa Tree? There are a few outsiders who want to inquire about the spirit of heaven and earth and are willing to increase Grandpa Tree's lifespan." Hearing this, the Wood Spirit clan's patriarch opened his mouth and didn't hide anything. Hearing that it was an outsider, the ancient tree naturally began to size up Xiao Qin's group. However, when it saw little green on Xiao Qin's shoulder, the ancient tree was obviously stunned. Fortunately, the ancient tree's expression didn't change. Otherwise, Xiao Qin would definitely have noticed it. On the other hand, little green was very quiet at this moment and didn't have the slightest sense of existence. After sizing up Xiao Qin, the ancient tree finally opened its mouth and said unhurriedly, "It's been a long time since outsiders have come to the land of creation." Xiao Qin's group was obviously not the first to come to the land of creation. However, Xiao Qin didn't care about the fate of the previous people. In response to the ancient tree's words, Xiao Qin cupped his hands and bowed. "Junior and the others have no other choice. We can only give it our all. If there was a way, who would take such a huge risk to enter the land of creation and even give up their physical body?" Hearing this, the ancient tree smiled and said, "Take out the elixirs first. After this old man recovers, I'll answer your questions. I'm a little tired now." This old guy even knew about elixirs. It seemed that he was indeed knowledgeable and had lived for so many years. In this regard, Xiao Qin didn't hesitate and directly took out 10 elixirs and handed them to the Wood Spirit clan's patriarch. These 10 elixirs were very valuable, but to Xiao Qin, they didn't have much meaning. After all, Xiao Qin wasn't short a lifespan at all. As the world lord, there was no possibility that he would die of old age. Hence, the elixirs might be extremely precious in the eyes of others, but to Xiao Qin wasn't that. It could even be said that they did everything they could to enter the land of creation. This was their hard work. However, after that, it would depend on fate and luck. It would depend on whether the spirit of the world was willing to help Xiao Qin and the others. If the spirit of the world refused to help, then even if Xiao Qin and the others searched the entire place, they would not be able to find the spirit of the world. On the other hand, if the spirit of the world was willing to help, then it would naturally appear. This was not something that Xiao Qin and the others could change through their efforts. Don't be too stubborn, or you'll only make yourself suffer. Sometimes, letting go is a better choice. So, what do you plan to do now? Old Tree was also interested in Xiao Qin. Hearing that, Xiao Qin thought for a moment, then smiled. "Senior, you're right. But since we're already here, let's walk around and take a look at the land of creation." Xiao Qin was no longer obsessed with looking for the spirit of the world, because even if he did, he would not be able to find it. However, he did not plan to wait in one place. Since he was already in the land of creation, he would be letting himself down if he did not walk around and take a look. After all, it was very likely that he would not have a second chance to enter the land of creation in his life. Old Tree also smiled when he heard Xiao Qin's words. Not bad, not bad. It's rare for you to have the opportunity to come here. Wouldn't it be a pity if you don't take a look? After all, this is the land of creation. There are many nice things and sceneries. The fact that Xiao Qin could say something like that proved that he had really thought it through. He was not just letting go of everything on the surface. Next, Old Tree also told Xiao Qin about some of the strange stories of the land of creation. From the beginning, everyone only talked about the spear of the world, but now they had already started talking about all sorts of things. Qin Shru and the other girls were obviously very interested in the land of creation. After all, it was full of countless strange life forms. In other words, in the land of creation, anything could have life. Even the most ordinary stone could give birth to spiritual wisdom in the land of creation. This was the special part of the land of creation. There were all kinds of strange life forms that did not exist in the outside world, which was very attractive to Qin Shru and the other girls. Moreover, the land of creation also had many nice sceneries. Even though Xiao Chun and the others did not have a physical body now, if they were lucky, they might be able to get a good opportunity in the land of creation. It was extremely good for the strengthening of their souls. Old Tree also recommended a few such places. Everyone chatted happily. Chapter 28-21. They were only separated by a thin line, but the scenery on both sides was completely different. While Xiao Chun and the rest were still in a daze, the little rock from before had already disappeared. By the time Gu Lingyao regained her senses, she had already lost track of the little rock. They were only separated by a thin line, but the scenery on both sides was completely different. While Xiao Chun and the rest were still in a daze, the little rock from before had already disappeared. By the time Gu Lingyao regained her senses, she had already lost track of the little rock. The little rock is gone, Gu Lingyao said to Xiao Chun gloomily after failing to catch up with it for a long time. Hearing this, Xiao Chun rubbed Gu Lingyao's little head and smiled. It's all right. This Wancher forest is the territory of the Rock Spirit clan. Are you afraid that you won't be able to find it? The little rock had run all the way here, so it was probably a member of the Rock Spirit clan. Hearing this, Gu Lingyao felt a little better. She then gritted her teeth and said, "Humph, I must catch it." Not sure if it was out of anger or something else, but Gu Lingyao seemed to have a deep obsession with the little rock. Xiao Chen smiled and did not say anything. After all, this girl had always been like this. Moreover, she did not have any bad intentions towards the little rock. She was just a little unconvinced. After all, she had chased it for so long and still could not catch it in the end. Xiao Chun gently patted Gu Lingyao's back, and the rest slowly walked into the Wancher forest. Little Qing, who was lying on Xiao Chen's back, cried out excitedly, "The Wancher forest! I've never been to a place like this. I didn't know that there was such a place in the land of creation." Little Qing seemed to be very interested in the Wancher forest. Not only her, but everyone else was as well. However, as soon as they entered the Wancher forest, Xiao Chun and the rest ran into trouble. They saw that the originally ordinary-looking rocks around them quickly moved. Then, rock spirits appeared one after another in front of Xiao Chun and the rest. These rock spirits came in different sizes. The small ones were very small, not even reaching the height of Xiao Chen's ankle. However, the large ones were also very large, comparable to a small mountain. Just like that, Xiao Chen's group, who had just entered the Wancher forest, were quickly surrounded by these rock spirits. One of the rock spirits with a huge forehead asked Xiao Chun with a buzzing voice, "Who are you?" His tone wasn't very good, and it seemed like he was going to attack at the slightest disagreement. It seemed that the Stone Spirit clan was just as the rumors said. They were very impulsive and easily angered. Moreover, they were the kind that didn't know how to turn around. In response, Xiao Chun smiled and said, "We're from the outer world, and we're currently searching for the world spirit." Under the situation where Little Rock didn't run away, Gu Lingyao easily defeated him and continued to ravage him. After being defeated by Gu Lingyao, Little Rock was completely depressed. He allowed Gu Lingyao to throw him around. There was even one time when his hand slipped and fell to the ground. Little Rock didn't even make a sound. He didn't understand why he was defeated. These people were clearly so slow. The Rock Spirit clan members on the side also started to laugh. Haha, Xiao Xiao. I told you to train your strength a long time ago. You just had to talk about speed. Look, speed is useless now. That's right, Xiao Xiao. As a member of the Rock Spirit clan, how can you be so weak? Come with me tomorrow. I'll teach you. Everyone mocked and bragged. During the conversation, Xiao Chen also learned that Little Rock's name was Xiao Xiao. Moreover, his identity wasn't simple. It was said that he was the son of the Rock Spirit clan's patriarch. He could be considered a young, patriarch-level figure. However, in the Rock Spirit clan, no one was afraid of Xiao Xiao just because he was the young patriarch. Perhaps this was the benefit of having a pure nature. In the land of creation, power and status had long been infinitely weakened. The beings living here didn't care at all. Or rather, they didn't know what power and status were. The so-called patriarch was just a bit older and respected. Of course, as a patriarch, the burden on his body was also very heavy. He wasn't Gu Lingyao's opponent. In front of Gu Lingyao, he couldn't resist at all. But soon, Xiao Xiao noticed Xiao Qing on Xiao Chen's shoulder. He immediately became spirited and jumped directly in front of Xiao Chen. He looked at Xiao Qing, who was about the same size as him but was obviously much weaker, and asked, "Who are you? Are you an outsider like these guys? Seeking collection, monthly votes, recommendation." Xiao Chun asked about the identities of the outsiders. While Xiao Chun and the others were talking, there was a commotion outside. The clan leader of the Stone Spirit clan returned. Everyone in the Stone Spirit clan was naturally happy that the patriarch had returned. Xiao Chun also looked in the direction of the sound and soon saw the leader of the Stone Spirit clan. However, what Xiao Chun really cared about was the few people beside the leader of the Stone Spirit clan. Upon seeing them, Xiao Chun smiled slightly. He didn't expect it to be Dong Fong Yun and the others. This time, Dong Fong Yun naturally didn't go to the land of creation alone. There were several powerhouses from the Red Wind world accompanying her. He didn't expect that the first person he met in the land of creation would be Dong Fong Yun. When Xiao Chun saw Dong Fong Yun naturally saw Xiao Chun as well. Upon seeing Xiao Chun, Dong Fong Yun also smiled and took the initiative to step forward. "I didn't expect to meet you guys here. I was wondering who it was before. I didn't expect it to be you. How is it? Is there any news about the world spirit?" Upon hearing Dong Fong Yun's words, Xiao Chun shook his head, indicating that he didn't have any harvest. In this regard, Dong Fong Yun didn't wait for Xiao Chun to speak and directly said, "It's the same. I didn't find anything on my side either." It was indeed not an easy thing to find the world spirit. He felt a little helpless in his heart, but soon the two stopped talking about this topic. Under Dong Fong Yun's introduction, Xiao Chun quickly got to know the leader of the Stone Spirit clan. Like the other members of the Stone Spirit clan, the leader of the Stone Spirit clan was also a straightforward character. When he saw Xiao Chun and the others, he didn't think much and laughed heartily to welcome them. Under the warm welcome of the Stone Spirit clan, Xiao Chun and the others also had a good time. It wasn't until nightfall, when everyone rested one after another, that Xiao Chun and Dong Fong Yun sat together to discuss the next matter. When they entered the land of creation, everyone was scattered by the spatial turbulence. Now, Dong Fong Yun didn't know the location of the others. It was also a coincidence that she met Xiao Chun here. During the time they entered the land of creation, Dong Fong Yun had also been inquiring about the world spirit. She had seen many creatures unique to the land of creation. Similar to Xiao Chen's situation, the creatures of the land of creation were very kind to outsiders like them. They didn't encounter any great danger. Unfortunately, Dong Fong Yun didn't find any clues about the world spirit along the way. Similarly, Xiao Chen also told Dong Fong Yun about the things on his side, including the matter of the Wood Spirit clan. Chapter 28-23. Seeing that Dong Fong Yun was a little depressed, Xiao Chun smiled freely. In fact, there's nothing to be unhappy about. Just as the old tree said, the choice is not in our hands now. The whereabouts of the spirit of the universe are uncertain. Who knows where it is? If it wants to help us, it will naturally show itself. Xiao Chen comforted Dongfang Yin. Dongfang Yin naturally understood that. She also understood that the choice was not in their hands. It was their choice whether the spirit of the world wanted to see them or not. There was no way they could force the spirit of the world to do so. However, it was one thing to understand the reason, but it was another thing to accept it. When she thought of the purpose of their trip this time, Dongfang Yin felt immense pressure. It was as if she did not have time to breathe at all. In the following time, Xiao Chun kept comforting Dongfang Yin and even told her some fun things when he was young. This was the first time Dongfang Yin knew about Xiao Chen's past. As the world lord of the universe, Dongfang Yin did not expect Xiao Chun to be someone who came from a small place. It should be known that with Xiao Chen's background, it would be very difficult for him to gain a foothold in the great wide world, let alone become the world lord. I didn't expect you to have such rich experience. A pair of beautiful eyes looked at Xiao Chun curiously, as if it was the first time she had met Xiao Chun. In this regard, Xiao Chun smiled and said, "This can't be helped. People are often forced. At that time, I didn't want to be the world lord. I just wanted the sword sect to gain a foothold in the great wide world." At this point, Xiao Chun paused and waved his hand helplessly. But who would have thought that in the end, I would become the world lord? So, people sigh, it's not good to be too talented. Xiao Chen's words were quite narcissistic, and he was completely different from his usual self. However, when Dongfang Yin heard this, she burst out laughing and then rebuked Xiao Chun. Narcissist. The two of them stared at each other, and for a moment, the atmosphere changed a little. Dongfang Yin didn't know why, but when he looked at Xiao Chun in front of him, he unconsciously became a little nervous, and, at the same time, he seemed to be looking forward to something. Xiao Chun also felt that the atmosphere wasn't right. Both of them were no longer virgins. Naturally, they knew what was going on. For a moment, Xiao Chun didn't know what to say. However, as a man, Xiao Chun still took the initiative to speak, wanting to break the awkward atmosphere. For Dongfang Yin, Xiao Chun naturally didn't have the slightest idea. Although this woman was very beautiful, she wasn't his cup of tea. Therefore, Xiao Chun took the initiative to change the topic. But who would have thought that as soon as Xiao Chun spoke, Dongfang Yin got up and ran away, only saying that he was tired.